morning, everyone. We are live now on YouTube. Just give 1 more minute before we start the session.
Hello, Mr. Ravi, how are you? Long time. Mr. Alim Chandani, how are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you, sir?
Fine, fine. Long time. Happy to see you, Mr. Ravi also.
Yeah, good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Manish, you want to go ahead?
Yes. Good morning, all of you. Today's special conclave, Meet the Experts think tank. A very warm welcome to all participants. Myself, Manish Mahendra Sangvi, think tank multidisciplinary global platform. Chapter leader welcomes you all to Think Tank Global Conclave for India Growth Story and Meet the Expert Series, covering in detail management think tank, valuation think tank, IBC think tank, financial reporting think tank, RERA cooperative think tank, FFP ISA think tank, IPO think tank, and capital markets think tank. Multidisciplinary platform for professionals and all stakeholders, sharing knowledge and wisdom with innovative news updates containing slides on sharing latest development and real-life examples by CEO, CXO, CFO, specialists, and professionals with a global experience. Think Tank has been in existence since over a decade. Idea for the conceived on 6th January 1991 to have conferences, conclaves with CEO, CXO, CFO panelists, and specialists sharing experiences and real-life examples. Our panelists are finance leaders working in reputed companies or profession since many years and have deep domain knowledge. Think Tank platform, now digital, has got overwhelming response globally on digital mediums and expanding rapidly through LinkedIn, in Facebook, etc. Our participants and experts have a rich experience in industry and profession. We have done ICAEW, CPA, CFA, CFP, IIM, CA, CS, CMA, ISA, DISA, FRM, IFRS, BTech, Masters, PhD, sharing experiences, knowledge, wisdom, spreading as a reach out initiative globally through thinktanks.co.in, and in spite of limited resources we have. Due to overwhelming response to our annual report, Corporate Strategy and ESG, we have announced 6 P awards and recognitions: Profit, People, Planet, Professionals, Promoters, Platform. For corporate annual reports, analysts, professional achievers, CEO, CXO, CFOs with a very respected jury with a rich experience in interaction with stakeholders and boards. Their recognitions and awards would be announced with a rigorous process of scrutiny and choice and interaction with the participants. Regular presentations and sharing experiences by CEO, CXO, CFOs, specialists with latest developments and series on corporate affairs, industry and markets, regulatory frauds, financial reporting, in ES, IBC, taxation, digital capital markets, technical analysis, ISA, risk management, and ethical contributions by well-wishers, etc. We will also be covering important and latest development as suggested by many participants in coming weeks. Example, valuations and financial modeling, health is wealth, cybersecurity, blockchain, MSME, latest regulations and developments in various important professional bodies globally and institutional, etc. We request all to subscribe to Think Tank YouTube channel for watching summits, conclaves, webinars, and join, connect, and network on Think Tank webinars group on LinkedIn, Facebook pages, Telegram channel, specially created on suggestions of many participants and panelists. We welcome all members and panelists. I especially thank my colleagues in the digital global team, Anupam, Aditya, Anurag, Archana, Aishwari, Dushyant, Falguni, Hemant, Mitesh, Mihir, Malvika, Manish, Nipun, Pramod, Praveen, Rakesh, Rucha, Pramod, R. Kannan, Santosh, Subrat, Snehal, Sandeep, Sanjeev and Umesh, Vihan, Vijay, Vikas, Vikram, Yogesh and others for regularly contributing to Think Tank. Today, we have an excellent think tank multidisciplinary platform seminar, stalwarts and specialists sharing their experiences and latest development. Let's have an interactive event. Thank you for all. Thank you to all. Now we start our session.
So before we start, we have recently lost a dear friend of ours, Ajay Parmar, and I would like Manoj to speak something about him, and we'll maintain keep a silence of 1 minute for his.
Thank you, Aditya. I would request Dr. C.A. Amit Jain, the convener of today's special meeting, to put his video on and share a few words. Dr. Amit?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to give some condolences to Mr. Ajay Parmar, who was the initial member of our think tank platform. He joined us a decade ago, and he is from the first day is part of our group. Just to give a brief introduction about himself, Ajay Parmar was a research head and investment banking head of MK Global, and ex investment head of MK Global, and he led a team of 30 analysts across the sectors, and he was a director at Keynote and a very renowned speaker in our think tank platform. He's a very good human being, and he was a very good mentor and guide for us. So I would like to I would request everybody to keep a 1 minute silent, a few seconds silent for silence for him. So continuing with our meeting, I would like to introduce Mr. KG Mantri. He is an MCOM, LLB, CAIIB, cost accountant by qualification, and the most important, he is very good counselor. He has 35 years of rich experience across various fields, including handling investor relations in a listed company. He is a visiting faculty in few management institutes. He loves tracking economy and financial market, and he is a co-founder of EquiCare Foundation, which is engaged in empowering financial literacy and investment management training. He is also associated with various social causes like Kesavishri Gram Vikas Yojana. His spiritual orientation and analytical ability makes him a preferred choice for counseling and mentoring. He will be speaking on Gita and management relations today for about a few seconds, 2 minutes. So, welcoming KG Mantri, sir. Mantri ji.
It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. KG Mantri ji. He has been a dear friend since a long time. And when we speak to Mr. Mantri on what topic you would like to speak, he has been an expert in investor awareness, doing a lot of work on the social front also. But Mr. Mantri always says, my first love is sharing knowledge and experience about Gita, and I can interact on the topic for as much time as you want. He can speak on all the chapters of Gita, and also loves to make it interactive and Dr. C.A. Amit Jain. I remember when we discussed on what topic you are a stalwart in getting some of the best speakers on capital market. But when you spoke about Mantri ji, you said the topic should be Gita, and we can link up with the management principles. And Mantri ji immediately said, yes, anytime you want. And he loves to share Gita Gyan on weekend. And Mr. Ravi is also with us here, a CFO and expert in risk management with excellent experience in leading business houses. Mr. Ravi, you are there with us?
Ravi, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm very much there.
Yeah, Mr. Ravi, a few words from you about Ajay Parmar.
I will do
and
that.
about
I will do
Gita,
that.
and we are waiting for Mr. Mantri ji to
Okay.
then give a special address.
Yeah, I will do that. I will do that. Thank you, Mr. Manoj. We recently lost Ajay Parmar ji to Lord. I want to say a few words about him. Ajay Parmar ji was a highly self-motivated finance professional with an entrepreneurial mindset. When I interacted with him, I could clearly figure out he was very solutions-driven. Ajay ji's expertise was in investment banking, corporate advisory, and portfolio strategy. I've interacted a few times on those subjects, and I found him to be extremely sharp and incisive. Ajay ji possessed a very strong analytical problem-solving acumen. Long back, I had an interaction with him, and during the interaction, he had a very pleasing and calm demeanor. In financial markets, we always come across people who are very hyper or in ecstatic state. But with Ajay ji, that is completely not to be there. He was always very calm, very resolute, and have a very calming demeanor. We lost a very good human being with an excellent professional. May his soul rest in peace, and thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Amit. Hello.
Yes, Mantri,
Hello.
you can.
Can you hear?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, can I start now?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mantri, we are all waiting to hear Gita Gyan from you
Very
and
nice.
linked with management, corporate world, industry, markets.
Sir, good morning to all of you. And with so much of heavily worded introduction of mine, which I don't think I prepare for that from Manojji and Amit, I hope that I'll be able to do justice to the opportunity given to me. And I'm delighted to be part of this session. I'm thankful to all of you. First thing is that I am not an authority or expert on Bhagavad Gita, because nobody can be. It's such a wonderful ocean of wisdom. Even if you get only a drop of it, if you are able to understand a drop of it, I think that can change the life. So I hope that I will try to capture some important points which are relevant to our management, to day-to-day management in our organizations. And one more thing, I would prefer to speak in most of the time in Hindi. So I hope that all of you are comfortable. If not, I'll definitely translate it into English wherever it is. But Hindi being my mother tongue and Gita being in Sanskrit and Hindi, so I'll be more connected when I speak to, connected to the heart when I speak in Hindi.
Mr. Mantri, you can speak in all languages. We look forward to a day, a series of sessions, which will be in all global languages.
Please.
English, French, German, Chinese, Japanese. Huh?
Thank you, sir. So one important point here is that my relationship with Bhagavad Gita is very, very interesting thing. I have basically two mothers. One is my biological mother, and one is the spiritual mother, that is Bhagavad Gita. That's my relationship with it. So the relationship of a mother and son is not required to be defined. We know all that, what kind of love and affection and guidance I get from this scripture. And I'm blessed that in the early childhood, I was introduced to this wonderful guide. Actually, Bhagavad Gita is, you can say, is the first and fully authentic text on human relationship, human behavior, mind, and you can say human psychology kind of thing. So it's more of a mind-related book. And we have many scriptures in Hindi or in my mythology, that is like Ramayana or Mahabharata. They are all stories. But Bhagavad Gita is not a story kind of book. Basically, Bhagavad Gita is just like any other science, physics or chemistry or metallurgy or anything like. It is a science of mind. And another important point before I come to the corporate learnings and lessons is that we all come from different faiths. I don't know how many of you have actually read Bhagavad Gita or understood it, some important aspects of it. But since we come from different faiths and different understanding of the subject, even if you don't believe that Lord Krishna was the Bhagavan, जहाँ पे हर जगह लिखा हुआ भगवान और हम उनको गॉड मानते हैं, I would urge you to consider him as one of the first नहीं, ये बोलूँगा कि he is the first psychological and psychiatrist and psychological doctor, because at battlefield he guided and pulled out Arjun from deep depression. So he was more of a doctor rather than God to him at that moment in time. Another important point which I would like to mention here, and very important, in entire Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan has used word I. Now here I doesn't mean the flesh and blood body of Lord Krishna. It was a universal consciousness which was talking to Arjun. So wherever word I is there, that actually reflects universal consciousness. And ISKCON people tell it, says it Krishna consciousness. So whether we call it Krishna consciousness or universal consciousness. So whether this war took place or it did not take place, we don't know about it. So there is no point in going into that. But actually, Bhagavad Gita को हम जब समझने की कोशिश करेंगे, तो it's a war going inside us, 24/7, and all whatever is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that it is inside us. All Dev, Asur, Sampada, or your Trigunatmak character, whatever is there, everything is about the fight inside us. Now, there is an English book called Subconscious Mind, Power of Subconscious Mind. Here, I would like to give a different perspective about Gita. Basically, if you try to understand mind, it has 3 layers. It is multiple layers, but basically we know largely 3 layers. One is the conscious mind. The second one is the subconscious mind. And third one is the superconscious mind or unconscious mind. There are 3 layers. So first, conscious mind, we are all aware that what is conscious mind, and the conscious mind deals with the external environment on a day-to-day basis. And subconscious mind is actually a powerhouse or storage of all your past and future data. But very few of us can connect with that. Or I can say a handful of people can connect with that. And then you have a superconscious mind or unconscious mind. That unconscious mind within us is nothing but a replica of the entire universe. So now if you look at Bhagavad Gita from the point of view, Arjuna is a conscious mind, Sri Krishna is a subconscious mind. And when he talks about Gita, he himself connects to the unconscious mind and gives wisdom to conscious mind. So when we are in dilemma and we don't believe in Murti Puja and Bhagavan Krishna, then you just sit in isolation, talk to yourself. When you start connecting to yourself and talking to yourself, you'll find that subconscious mind is very much there. It is ready to guide you. It is ready to take you forward. It is ready to answer your queries about life. But the point is, what applied to Krishna, same thing applies to subconscious mind also. जब भगवान ने अर्जुन का सारथी बनना स्वीकार किया था, so there were 2 conditions, that I won't take any weapon in my hand, and I'm not going to talk to you unless you speak to me. मेरा काम केवल रथ चलाने का है. Similarly, the subconscious mind within us will guide you only when you talk to it. Otherwise, you do whatever you want to do. So the point is, unless and until your subconscious mind is your sarthi, unless and until you talk to your sarthi, it's not going to come and guide you to do X or Y thing. But once you start learning, connecting, then you will find that you and your God, everything is inside. And many number of places Bhagavad Gita says that I am residing inside you. So it's about invoking your subconscious mind and power within. Before I start, I would express my gratitude to the 4 important characters in Bhagavad Gita. One is Arjun, and in the last chapter, it is mentioned Arjun ka naam jo Bhagwan ne liya, bola Mahatma Arjun. Mahatma Arjun means he is actually, all of us are soul in the spiritual world. But Mahatma Arjun he was considered a super soul. So Mahatma matlab wo hum sab ke liye, on behalf of entire humanity, Arjun asked many questions about life to Krishna. So all of us are and must be thankful to Arjun that 5,000 years back, he envisaged all problems humanity is going to face, all mental issues we are going to face, and he asked many questions to Lord Krishna. Second, thanks to Krishna Bhagavan ka naam second mein bhi nahi hai. Second, thanks to Vedavyas, because he wrote it and gave it to us. Third is Lord Krishna, because he answered all the questions of Arjun to his satisfaction. And the interesting part is that all war-related questions, all Arjun ki jitni bhi takleefein thi, they were answered. All his questions were answered maximum by 3rd chapter. Beyond that, Lord Krishna kept on repeating, kept on saying different things which were not related to war, which were not related to Arjun. It means he had larger thing in mind that this scripture or this discourse should be useful for the entire humanity in the coming years. Because Bhakti Yoga, Krishna का है, उसमें संन्यास है, भक्ति है, ध्यान योग है, और भी काफी बातें उसमें बताई गई है. What to eat, what not to eat, how to sleep, what not, when to sleep, when not to sleep. Many things are there. But all those things are not relevant to war. The war-related worries, the war-related counseling was over by 3rd chapter. Now, one more thing is a small point मैं capture करना चाहूँगा कि the entire Western management style, we talk about external management. दूसरों से कैसे काम लेना, इसके ऊपर पूरी कहानी चलती है. So we are focused more on external resources, whereas Bhagavad Gita is the only management book, you can say, which focuses on internal management. How do you manage your mind, or how you achieve equilibrium and stillness and calmness in your mind is the focus. Because once you are calm and still in your mind, I think you can achieve many things. So let me just, now I'm coming back to this theme, today's theme, that what are the major management lessons to be learned. I'll focus on a couple of points only. 18 अध्याय पे बात करना संभव नहीं है. पहले 1-2 अध्याय से ही अपना काम हो जाएगा. उसके बाद मैं चाहूंगा कि the audience throws questions to me, and I would like to answer those questions to the best of my ability. The first and foremost lesson from corporate point of view is the communication, the quality of communication. How do you communicate? It is a discussion between 2 gentlemen. One is the disciple and one teacher. And in this communication, Lord Krishna ensured to the last chapter that everything whatever is told to him is understood. And आखिरी में उससे पूछते भी हैं कि hope you understood everything. So this is the quality of communication we all need to adopt in our corporate world. Now, with this same communication point, see, when Duryodhan introduces his army and in the battlefield, और द्रोणाचार्य को लेके आते हैं, और he tells that she who is there in the opposite side and also look at our own army. Then see which word he uses and how he introduces is very interesting. It was very humiliating for Dronacharya. So it shows that if you humiliate your team, then it's difficult to win the battle. When he introduced, he did not tell that Dronacharya look at the other army. He said that look at the army which is organized magnificently by your own Shishya. It means what he wanted to communicate कि लोग तुम्हारा ही जो शिष्य है वो हमारे सामने खड़ा हुआ है इतनी बढ़िया करके, तो आपने क्या किया? I mean, indirectly, if you read between the lines, he basically humiliated Dronacharya. कि लोग your own Shishya is doing and is fighting against us, and he has done a wonderful arrangement for their army, or व्यू रचना इसको बोलेंगे या रणनीति बोलेंगे, war strategy he has done. So this is one way of communicating. So I mean, this communication in our corporate world, what we do is we communicate to our employees. I have seen many corporate meetings. I attended meetings in our company. All of you have seen that some of the times the management starts meeting with a humiliation. Rather than humiliating someone one should start meeting with positive words. Like Lord Krishna in the second chapter, he went on to saying Arjun are important. ये तुमको नपुंसकता कहाँ से प्राप्त हुई है इस समय? But before saying you are important, he told him that you are one of the best human being. How you have arrived at this importance? It means पहले उसको तारीफ की. अरे एकदम पढ़े लिखे आदमी है, ऐसी कैसी बात कर रहे हो? जैसे हम बोलते हैं अक्सर मीटिंग के अंदर, अरे यार you are such an intelligent person, you are such hard working person. How are you saying like this? So first he appreciated, and then he told him, why are you talking like this at this battlefield? So this is first my observation on management skills, that is the communication. Bhagavad Gita teaches you how you communicate. Second important point is, before starting the journey, how do you, any project in companies, how do you choose your resources? That's very important. Arjun and Duryodhana both had equal opportunity to take Krishna on their side. Rather, the first opportunity was given to Arjun, and he chose Krishna. And Duryodhana was very happy because he got a huge army of Lord Krishna with him. So the lesson here is that when we implement a project or we do something big, we need to find out what kind of resources we need for that. Arjun opted for wisdom, whereas Duryodhana opted for numbers. And finally, Duryodhana lost. So you need to find out, it's not only about human being, but all kind of resources for implementation of any project. You need to be very careful what kind of resources you are selecting. Next important point, which even Pradhan Mantri ji spoke from Lal Kila on 15th August, this 15th August, that's very hot topic in today's time, is the nepotism. Our institutions, like be it politics, be it sports, be it judiciary, be it business houses, most of them are, suffering from nepotism. And Bhagavad Gita का जो पहला अध्याय और पहला वर्ड जो शुरू होता है धृतराष्ट्र उवाच, very interesting. धृतराष्ट्र जो है, he is a representative or icon of nepotism. And see how the nepotism translated into such a big war and destruction in that period. Had he acknowledged talent is against the lineage, probably this war would not have taken place. So nepotism और साथ में धृतराष्ट्र अंधे भी थे. यहाँ पे ये सब दिखता है अपने को कि nepotism is actually blind. We see in politics today that political parties run by family, they don't think beyond family. The businesses run by families, they don't think beyond families. Any business house which has seen beyond families and made the entire structure professional, like for example, we have FMCG company, homegrown FMCG company like Dabar, we have company like Marico, we have company like Asian Paints. These are homegrown promoter, family oriented and family promoted companies. But when the time came, they're dealing the management from their business. So nepotism should not be there. It's a curse. So it's this is one lesson we need to learn from Bhagavad Gita. Next is, now Bhagavad Gita के पहले अध्याय में सब लोग शंख बजाते हैं. So what shankh means what? Shankh क्या बता रहा है? What is the symbol? When we start meeting, we all have, पर्सनल लाइफ में हमारे अपने शंख होते हैं. हम जब घर से निकलते हैं तो अपने पेरेंट्स को चरण स्पर्श करके निकलते हैं, भगवान को प्रणाम करके निकलते हैं, बच्चों को, वाइफ को हक करके निकलते हैं. And these are all our shank. These are the good omens. Similarly, when we start meeting, we should start meeting with all good omens rather than talking anything negative about any outcome or anything. So it represents that all of us start our day, our meeting, our communication with some positive orientation. Now, before we enter into any project, important aspect, which only I'm talking only about the first pair. Once the preparation. Now here, both parties. Duryodhana is also reviewing his preparation. Arjun is also reviewing. Can you please put your audio off, ma'am? I think somebody. Hello. Hello. Yeah. So both parties. So here one lesson is that before you launch the project, like the final stage, not before launch, at the final, the word go, you should, or the management should review entire project once again. What are the resources on our side? What are the resources on the opposite side? What are the challenges we are going to meet? all those things are explained in chapter 1, that both teams review their preparedness. So this is a lesson that whenever we launch a project in our company, we should review all the preparations and everything. Now, Arjun got confused. He got fearful and he had a lot of doubts. The story starts from here. He was very fearful, very, he started sounding like a coward, whereas he was a great warrior. तो यहाँ पे corporate में lesson हमें मिलता है कि for a person who doesn't want to do anything, he has 100 excuses. So Arjun gave all kinds of excuses for not fighting the war. And we find in our teams also, at times we have team members who give a lot of excuses. So they are capable of delivering, but they have a lot of excuses. So there are two mythological characters. One is Arjun, who is capable but giving a lot of excuses. And one is Hanuman, who is go-getter. So we have both kind of team members in our team. When you work in the corporates, you find both kind of members. आप किसी को बोलेंगे कठिन काम होगा तो if he is Hanuman kind of person, say yes, done. He will use the word done. The moment you assign a task, he'll say done. If he is a person like Arjun, he's capable, but then he will throw a lot of excuses. This is not there, that is not there, I don't have the facility, I don't have the laptop, I don't have light, I don't have a vehicle, how can I do all those things? So here, it clearly tells whenever you have resources in company, so what kind of resource you have and what kind of mentorship is required for that resource. Now, next thing is, when Arjun was in confusion, he threw a lot of arguments not to fight the war and spoke to Krishna. Before he surrendered in front of Krishna, when Krishna says, what are you doing? This is not the place. This is not the time for all these arguments, all these things. You should raise and fight this righteous war. So is asamay. वहाँ पे एक word use करते हैं कि this is not the time to ponder on all these things, because Krishna was not in favor of war. We all of us know. He approached to Kauravas only for 5 villages. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि this war was in making for many years. तो कृष्ण का वहाँ कहना था कि at this wrong time you are raising the right question. You may be right in saying you don't want to fight the war, fine. But at this moment, this is not the right time to tell that I don't want to fight the war. असमय, इसका मतलब ये है कि तुमने मुझे पहले बताया होता तो we would have avoided it. But now you entered into the war and now you are saying that I don't want to do it. That's not the right thing. That time only Arjun realized that he is the person who is my mentor and he is the one who is far more wise than me and he can guide me. Before that, Arjun was talking all intellectual things. He was not considering Lord Krishna as a wise person. He was just simply saying कि ये मेरे रिश्तेदार है, ये ऐसा है, वैसा है, हमारी आगे की पीढ़ी खराब हो जाएगी, ऐसा हो जाएगा, वैसा हो जाएगा, how should we do it, how can we kill them, it's better that I get killed without any weapon, by these Kauravas and all that. So he gave a lot of arguments showing that he's an intelligent person. यहाँ पे मैं एक आपको interesting बात बोलना चाहूँगा कि in our today's time also, we are surrounded with a lot of people, those who are negative, but they sound very intelligent. In corporate world, in media, in economic sphere, those who are very negative, they look very intelligent because there is questions how this will be implemented, how it will be done. For example, Jan Dhan Yojana Prime Minister chalu ki, opening 30-35 crore accounts and all that. Lot of intellectuals raised lot of questions. Ultimately, it was implemented. And there are many schemes. There are many things happening in the life. So intellectual people का एक ये होता है. Negative लोग जो होते हैं, they look very intelligent and very impressive. But wise people or the positive people look very naive. वो अपना काम से काम करते रहते हैं, उनका कोई गुणगान नहीं होता है. It's out of context, but yes, I would like to mention. I don't fear mentioning names. We had a celebrity governor in Reserve Bank of India. He used to be in news on and off because he was celebrity. But see what kind of negativity he had in mind, because he was extremely intelligent person, intellectual person. Today we have a different governor. He is a wise person. In last 2 years of pandemic, he has, navigated the entire economy in the financial system in a very, perfect manner or in a right way, so that we are one of the least impacted economy today. So point is, intelligence looks very, negatives look very interesting. जब बोर्ड मीटिंग होती है या आपकी कोई प्रोजेक्ट की किक ऑफ होती है, तो ऐसा बहुत सारे लोग आपके साथ बैठते हैं जो बोलते हैं ऐसा हो जाएगा वैसा हो जाएगा, और बाद में जब ये होता है then they come and say that look, I told you this is going to happen, this was going to happen and all that. So we need to be aware of this kind of people. Now why Krishna asked this question and why should we also see, the most important aspect here is Arjun का एक बात मानना पड़ेगी कि when he realized, और ये हम सबके ऊपर लागू होती है कि when we know that we don't know, the one who knows and he knows that he doesn't know, that actually is the person we require counseling and can be counseled. The person who doesn't know that he doesn't know, then you can't counsel him. So Arjun ने कहा कि मैं अब आपके सामने हूँ, सरेंडर करता हूँ, मुझे कुछ समझ में नहीं आता है, now you guide me. So he surrendered in front of Krishna and he asked the question to the person who knows that he knows he knows. भगवान कृष्ण वो आदमी थे जो खुद वो जानते भी थे कि वो जानते हैं इस चीज को. So when you have experts in your team, you should make utilization of them, and how and when and how and when such resources to be utilized. Now next is here the question came. Arjun was not asking him how to fight the war. Every preparation was there. He was asking question why. Why should I fight the war? So this why keeps coming in our corporate world, in our life, and we need this to be answered. As I earlier mentioned, that project can be dropped at a very early stage, but when it is in between execution, the dropping the project is not possible. That's why Krishna told there is no way, you have to fight this war. And when the force is needed, direction is to be taken, you have to be out of fear and out of doubt. Now, here one more important thing is that knowledge is supreme. That is very mentioned. And when knowledge is supreme, you have to follow, your passion. Second जो अध्याय है वो knowledge के ऊपर है, और बाद में तीसरा अध्याय में कर्मयोग के ऊपर है. तो ये दोनों अध्याय के अंदर again in the third chapter Arjun got confused कि आप मुझे एक तरफ तो बोलते हैं कि ज्ञान सर्वोपरि और दूसरी तरफ मुझे इस भयंकर कर्म में क्यों लगाते हैं? Why are you getting me engaged in this? So here the important point is detachment. And जो हमारे जो सबसे ज्यादा पॉपुलर वर्स है जो भगवत गीता की कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्तु मा फलेषु कदाचन, हमारा कर्म में अधिकार है, उसके आउटपुट में नहीं, उसके परिणाम में नहीं. इसका बहुत सिंपल लॉजिक है कि when you do something in company or in personal life, there are many variables and most of the variables are not in your control. What is in your control is in your action only. So if you waste your energy and time on dwelling too much on the variables, then probably your performance is going to get impacted. And why Lord Krishna says that you don't worry about the outcomes, because एक जगह उन्होंने महसूस अनुभव किया, बताया है कि जिस तरह से वर्ल्ड वाइड वेब हमारा WWW है, वैसे दिस एंटायर थ्योरी ऑफ कर्मा इज अ वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स थ्योरी. सो यू डोंट नो what action has what reaction and what reaction has what action. So unless and until we know, for example, 100 years back we were not knowing that our drawing room is airwaves. When television was introduced, now we came to know. So lack of knowledge doesn't mean that something is wrong. We have our own worldview in which we think what we know is enough, but that's not the case. That's why Lord Krishna says that you do your duty and let the fruit follow, because you are not aware. I am aware of everything, but you are not. So your job is to just perform your duty and do it. और सबसे आखिरी में अब मैं यहाँ से अपनी बात समाप्त करूँगा, and then I'll throw this floor for question answer. The last thing is that as a good communicator, as a good counsel, Krishna ensured in the last chapter that Arjuna understands what he's saying, and once he was sure that now Arjuna has understood everything, and Arjuna acknowledges that yes, मुझे अब समझ में आ गया है what you narrated to me, and I'll fight this war. That time उसके पहले भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने कहा मुझे जितना कहना था वो मैंने कह दिया, या यथेच्छसि तथा कुरु. I mean, as a counselor and a consultant, you should not be judgmental and you should not thrust upon your decision. So Bhagavan Krishna simply told him that you do whatever you want to. यथेच्छसि तथा कुरु. तेरे को लड़ना हो तो लड़, न लड़ना हो तो न लड़. मैंने जितने सवाल पूछे थे उसका मैंने जवाब दिया, and my job is over. With this, I stop my conversation on this today's session, and request all of you, if you have any question, I would like to answer to the best of my ability. Thank you very much.
Mantriji, I have got 3 questions. I
Yeah.
will split into 3 parts.
Yeah.
I think whether in personal life or in professional life,
Yeah.
there are 3 things which constantly comes to hunt us. Am I right? How to overcome anger and outrage. That's one. How to overcome ego and possessiveness. Again, it is part of our corporate. And how to overcome distraction and improve concentration. These are the 3 parts. I think these are relevant to us on a personal life and professional life.
Very good question, sir. Let me answer to the best of my ability. Anger, ego, and possession. These are all byproduct of attachment. When we feel that we are the doers, जब हमें ये लगता है कि we are doing it, तो इसमें भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने एक जगह अर्जुन को बोला है कि निमित्त मात्रेण भव सव्य साचिन. You just be the nimitt of this. You are not doer. Doer is someone else. So when we feel that we are doer, then anger, ego, possessiveness, everything comes into picture. When you perform your duty with a detachment, without concentrating on the outcome, and you just do as if it is required to be done. और इसलिए एक important बात ये है कि भगवान कृष्ण ने कोई अच्छे बुरे की बात कही भी नहीं है. उन्होंने कहा है कि जो भी आदमी अपने कर्तव्य को, इवन अब जैसे मान लीजिए 1 मिनट के लिए जो जल्लाद फांसी की सजा देता है, वो फांसी की सजा देने वाला जल्लाद, he is performing his duty.
Absolutely.
If he is performing his duty without detachment, then he is not committing a sin. He is simply performing his duty. So when you are attached to the outcome, you are attached to action, then anger, ego, and possession comes. Now, specifically for anger, let me give a small example. When you do anger, there are 2 kinds of anger you do. One is aware anger and anger with awareness, and the other one is without awareness. आप अपने छोटे बच्चे को जब डांटते हैं तो आप अवेयर है कि आपकी डांट जो है वो ऊपरी है. It's not coming from your heart. So if you develop that kind of attitude for all of your anger, that जो मैं anger कर रहा हूँ ये ऊपर ऊपर है, it's not affecting me inside, and you don't have any attachment with the anger or ego or possession, all these things are not there, then probably it will be possible. So यहाँ पे एक महत्वपूर्ण बात आती है कि भगवान कृष्ण को अर्जुन ने पूछा यही सवाल कि तो what is the difference between the person who is aware or awakened and the person who is not awakened? He simply said that they're all actions, words, deeds, misdeeds, everything is same except the level of awareness. The one who is aware, he thinks that जो कुछ है ये ड्रामा है. Whatever outside is happening is drama. Let me give another example. When you go to watch movie, जब मूवी देखने जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे हम में से करीब हर एक को बहुत जोर से इमोशनल आउटबर्स्ट भी होता है. तो मूवी काफी अच्छी होती है, कुछ टाइप की होती है, कुछ को नहीं होता है. तो जो स्ट्रॉन्ग हेडेड होते हैं उनको लगता है ये तो पैसे देके मूवी देख रहे हैं, इसमें कौन सा इमोशंस का सवाल है. और जो व्यक्ति इमोशनली आउटबर्स्ट करता है उसको भी बाहर आने के बाद लगता है कि ठीक है मूवी वाज गुड, इमोशनली वो अंदर रोया, मैं भी रोता हूँ, आप भी, हम हर एक के इमोशंस बस्ट होते हैं जब हम कोई देशभक्ति की मूवी देखते हैं या कोई ऐसी इमोशन पेन की मूवी देखते हैं. लेकिन वी आर अवेयर दैट वी हैव पेड मनी and these actors have done a wonderful job. That's it. So if we take our life in that way, that we are all actors and we have a job to do and we are doing, so that awareness need to be, I mean, inculcated, need to be reminded on a daily basis, because it's not easy to get out of this attachment. But yes, with the practice one can do. Another important point here is ये सब चीजों में अर्जुन ने बहुत बड़ा सवाल उठाया एक बीच में कि जब कृष्ण ने कहा कि you need to control your mind. If you control your mind, if your mind is still, your mind is calm, then there is no question. I mean, mind is the supreme thing which, I mean, can guide you. Then कृष्ण ने, अर्जुन ने तुरंत सवाल उठाया कि मन बहुत चंचल है. It's very, very fickering. And it's impossible for me to control mind. So if you are saying that you control mind, that's impossible for anybody. Then Lord Krishna says, yes, it is difficult. It is not impossible. It is difficult. But with practice, you can control it. The interesting point is, in another chapter, Bhagavan Krishna says, these are 2 different places where mind is defined. When Arjun says mind is very flickering and it's unstable and chanchal hai ye, तो वहाँ उन्होंने कहा कि it can be controlled with help of practice. And other chapter he says that I am the mind. See, these are two different places. जहां वो बता रहे हैं कि any powerful or any strong thing in the world is nothing but manifestation. So मैं सूर्य हूँ, मैं चंद्र हूँ, मैं मन हूँ, इंद्रों में मैं मन हूँ, और पांडवों में मैं धनंजय हूँ, पश्चिमवंशियों में मैं वासुदेव हूँ. मतलब वो ये कहना ही चाह रहे थे कि दुनिया की जितनी भी जो भी प्रॉस्पेरिटी है, जो आप जो देखते हैं, जो प्रॉस्पेरिटी से मेरा मतलब ये है कि ये कॉस्मिक एनर्जी जो आप देख रहे हैं, दिस इज व्हाटएवर यू सी इज द मैनिफेस्टेशन ऑफ कॉस्मिक एनर्जी, एक्सपेंशन ऑफ कॉस्मिक एनर्जी, एंड wherever you see, I am only there. So when he was explaining, so how to explain that, how powerful he is that in इंद्रियों में, मतलब sensory organs के अंदर I am mind. So at one place he is saying that I am mind, in another place he is saying that you control the mind. So these are two different things, but the point is, here I want to make it that if we have awareness, then I think this issue can be resolved.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mantri ji,
Sir.
I am Dushyant Shah.
Sir.
Yeah, now couple of questions, or rather two in one or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned about nepotism.
Yeah.
And we see all around, like in political parties and more so in the business.
Yeah.
That, you know, every businessman passes on the affairs, you know, helm of the affairs of the business to
True.
their family only.
Yeah.
Right? Very few companies or businesses will have where there are, you know, professional management, and that is possible in the limited companies structure. But family businesses, always the business passes on to the, you know, children.
Yeah.
So now, if it is not correct, not good, then how, especially in big organizations and political parties, how to fight this nepotism? You know, and how we can control that or fight that? That is my question number one. And number two is that there are a lot of people who are arrogant. Like we see in a political scenario also, and we see in the business, you know, also that people at the top, a lot of people are arrogant and they don't listen to others. So how to tackle such situations using principles of Gita?
The first question is fighting nepotism. The fighting nepotism is possible if it is possible for you to correct that situation, then it's okay. If you are not in a position to influence that situation, you don't have much options. Like yesterday's development is Ghulam Nabi Azad has left the Congress party. So he tried to fight for last 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, and finally he surrendered that it's not repairable. There is no point. So he left it. So fighting nepotism, whether it is in your interest, in organization interest, yes, as a dutiful employee or a dutiful senior person, you should try to bring these points. But point with nepotism, I mean, I have also worked in family-owned companies and all this stuff here. So it's a very listening is very poor. Any negative listening is very poor. And we have the entire Congress party getting disseminated just because there is a nepotism. So I don't think you can, as an individual, can fight beyond a point. The option left for you is to change the course. And we have seen magnificent companies getting created, as I named a couple of companies like Asian Paints, Marico, Dabur, and recent example is Infosys. In the lifetime of promoters, they exited and companies completely professionalized. So it's about mindset. Now we have two large organizations like Ambani's and Adani's. They have no interest in completely professionalizing setup. Their next generation is going to manage it. So there are various formats. Like जिस जमाने में ये बात हो रही थी, उस जमाने में राजतंत्र हुआ करता था. It was the kingdom, but today we are in democracy. So there are possibilities that we can fight it out. Next आपका question है sir, arrogance का. ये arrogance चूंकि उसका है, so you can't do anything about their arrogance. You can only, what you can control is your reaction on his arrogance. The point is, you don't have any control on somebody else's mind. You don't have any control on the external factor. That is what actually Bhagavad Gita tells from the beginning, that you have control only on your mind. You don't have control on anything outside. You have control only on your action, your thoughts, and your own mind. You don't have any control on external. So if you are getting provocated, or you feel that there is a lot of arrogance, then you need to find out what is your reaction inside. You can only change your reaction. You cannot change the person beyond a point. एंड इन टुडेज वर्ल्ड वी नो सर, अपने को ज्यादा किसी को समझाने जाते हैं तो वो बजाय हमें उसको पॉजिटिव लेने के वो नेगेटिव लेता है, और एज आई टोल्ड दैट people, अरे इसको क्या पता है, और we have seen airline like Kingfisher airline where the CFO suggested that this is not our business, boss, we should not do it, and he laughed at him that no, let me do it and see what happens. So beyond a point, being in corporate world, even though you know that something happening around is not good, you have very limited options to correct that. So वहां पे भगवान कृष्ण के लाइफ से एक सेंटेंस आता है, एक इंसिडेंस आता है जो भगवत गीता से जुड़ा हुआ है, जो भगवान कृष्ण अर्जुन को बता रहे हैं कि वॉर कैसे फाइट करना और वॉर में से बाहर नहीं निकलना। और हमें सबको मालूम है कि भगवान कृष्ण ने खुद ने मथुरा के अंदर जरासंध के वॉर को छोड़ दिया, एंड ही फॉर दैट ही इज नोन एज रणछोड़। आपको मालूम होगा भगवान कृष्ण का एक नाम है रणछोड़ भी है। तो ये रणछोड़ उनका नाम क्यों पड़ा? ये इसलिए नाम पड़ा कि व्हेन ही सॉ दैट मथुरा इज गेटिंग अटैक्ड अगेन एंड अगेन बाय जरासंध ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस, देन ही स्पोक इन हिज मीटिंग। नाना जो उनके थे उनकी मीटिंग में उन्होंने बोला कि यहाँ से बेहतर है कि हमको इस जगह शिफ्ट कर लेना चाहिए, इससे हम लोग रोज लड़ेंगे, अपनी एनर्जी खराब करने में फायदा नहीं है। तो दुष्यंत सर, मैं आपको ये कहना चाह रहा था कि जब हमें लगता है कि फाइट का कोई मीनिंग निकलने वाला नहीं है, तो भगवान जैसे व्यक्तित्व ने राइट टाइम का इंतजार करने के लिए ही वेटेड फॉर द राइट टाइम, राइट अपॉर्चुनिटी, राइट रिसोर्सेज टू किल जरासंध। अल्टीमेटली ही वाज किल्ड, बट टिल दैट ही शिफ्टेड हिज बेस फ्रॉम मथुरा टू द्वारिका, constructed a wonderful city, and then thereafter at right time with the help of Bhim he killed Jarasandh. But till that time the resources are not there, the opportunity is not there, the environment is not there. He preferred to, लोगों ने बोला कि आपको लोग रणछोड़ बोलेंगे तो युद्ध के मैदान से भाग गए, भगोड़ा बोलेंगे, नो प्रॉब्लम। सो आपने देखा होगा गुजरात के अंदर दाहोद के पास में एक मंदिर रणछोड़ राय का मंदिर बोला जाता है। So he left the war in between. So it's not necessary that you keep fighting unless the fight is meaningful and it is going to result into something. Oh, I answered your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Teji,
Yeah.
one question comes in my mind always. On one side, Krishna Bhagwan always mentioned about ahimsa in Gita, and on the other side, he asked Arjun to go for a yuddha. So how do you make out of these two differences, and what is the management lesson you would give on this?
Very difficult question, Amit. Let me answer this question, because ये question अभी तक कोई कहीं कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं कि भाई एक तरफ तो वो अहिंसा की बात करते हैं भगवत गीता में, और एक तरफ जो है वो अर्जुन को बोल रहे हैं कि तुम वॉर करो। तो ये यहाँ पे एक अहिंसा के ब्रॉडर मीनिंग को हमें समझना होगा, एंड व्हाई आर वी डूइंग अहिंसा एंड व्हाट इज अहिंसा। पहली बात तो ये है कि द होल यूनिवर्स इज फुल ऑफ एनर्जी and life. So when you breathe, in 10 seconds of breathe in and breathe out, maximum we take 10 seconds, or not even 10 seconds, 5 seconds. Within 5 to 7 seconds, when you breathe in and breathe out, you are inhaling trillions of bacteria and exhaling trillions of dead bacteria. When you are drinking water, you are drinking actually a lot of cells or bacteria, live cells. The point यहाँ ये है कि have you stopped drinking water? No. Have you stopped breathing? No. In the theoretical parlance or strictly textbook definition of ahimsa, ये भी अहिंसा है। फिर आप सांस ही लेना बंद कर देंगे, जिएंगे कैसे? पानी पीना बंद कर देंगे, जिएंगे कैसे? तो यहाँ पे हमें समझना पड़ेगा कि अहिंसा जो बिना किसी उद्देश्य के जो हिंसा की जाती है वो हिंसा है। अभी एक जानवर है, शेर है। शेर यदि वो अपने भूख के लिए किसी को मारता है, तो वो प्रीडेटर यदि इसको मार रहा है तो वो हिंसा नहीं है, because it is required for his life. What he is going to do? He is performing his duty. That's it, and he has to survive. So अनावश्यक हिंसा जिसकी जरूरत नहीं है। And I would like to tell you one more important point here, and here I learned a lot from Jainism, that excessive consumption is also a violence. Forget anything. आपको एक टीवी की जरूरत, आपने 2 टीवी ले ली। आपके पास एक कार की जरूरत, आपने 2 कार ले ली। This excessive consumption itself is a violence. So violence doesn't mean that you are killing some human being or some animal. Violence is if you are not using all your resources, be it water, be it air, be it car, be it clothes, be it food, anything. If you are excessively indulged, it means you are engaged in violence. So violence and non-violence have tremendous, huge scope. For example, अगर आप किसी को मारते हैं तो वो violence, लेकिन यदि सैनिक किसी को मारता है, it's not. He is doing his duty. So we need to differentiate between required violence, unavoidable violence, and the violence which is only done for the pleasure. Here I would like to tell you one very important thing. ये मैं अक्सर कहीं मेरे सेमिनार में यूज करता हूँ कि jungle raj is better than today's market economy, and then I get a lot of criticism for that. Why? Because in jungle raj the predator kills the prey only when he feels hungry, otherwise no. But in the market economy, every businessman wants to kill the other business in the name of competition. So marketplace is good to some extent, but what kind of competition should be allowed, what kind of competition should not be allowed, all these are debatable. These are not today's subject matter. But my simple point, limited point is that when predator kills, when an army personnel kills, or when you drink water, or when you breathe, or when you eat food, the kind of violence you're committing is a permissible violence. It doesn't come in the violence. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, thanks, man.
Any other question?
मंत्री जी गुड मॉर्निंग.
Good morning.
हाँ, ये आपने जो बात बताई ना सर, मुझे एक और पॉइंट याद आया इस पे कि जैसे बोलते हैं कि गीता को आप जितनी भी बार पढ़ते हो उससे एक नया अर्थ निकलता है.
Yes, you are very right. You are very right.
तो आज आपने जो शुरू में बताया कि एकदम शुरू में, और आपने जो अभी एंड में बताया उसमें एक छोटा सा मुझे एक पॉइंट ये करना ऐड कि आपने बोला कि जब गीता को पढ़ते हैं तो आप इस तरह से पढ़िए कि ये अपने अंदर का जो वॉर है वो सब इंटरनल है, आप एक्सटर्नल कुछ नहीं कर पा रहे.
Yes.
तो जब अहिंसा और हिंसा की बात आती है तो मेरे ख्याल से गीता सिर्फ यही बताता है कि आपके अंदर जो है आप उससे युद्ध कर सकते हो, शायद बाहर जो है उससे आप युद्ध नहीं कर सकते, या वो ये नहीं बताता कि उसको कैसे फाइट करना है. क्योंकि अगर किसी ने जैसे पूछा कि एरोगेंस के बारे में, तो एरोगेंस आप अपना खत्म कर सकते हो, दूसरे का नहीं. तो इट इज ऑल अबाउट इंटरनल फाइटिंग. तो इज माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग right in the sense?
You're very right. Your understanding is right, and I would like to try to elaborate. I may not be having perfect answer for this, but let me just arrogance of whom first of all. आप किसके arrogance की बात कर रहे हैं? The arrogance of your superior. Just one minute. Arrogance of your superior or your junior. If a junior person is arrogant, if your son is arrogant, your daughter is arrogant, you can guide him. Don't behave like this. If your boss is arrogant, you can't. So from which at what level we are looking at? I mean, अगर वो बॉस का एरोगेंस है तो बेटर ये है कि हम अपने आप को अपनी रिएक्शनों से एरोगेंस पे बदल दें, और यदि बच्चों का एरोगेंस है तो हम उसको गाइड कर सकते हैं, काउंसलिंग कर सकते हैं. यहाँ पे एक छोटी सी इससे हटके एक बात बताना चाहूंगा कि फ्रीडम फाइट के अंदर काफी लोगों ने अपनी आहुति दी अपने देश की आजादी के लिए. महात्मा गांधी आज सर्वोपरि लीडर हमारे यहाँ देश में निकले. अभी भी डिबेट चलता रहता है कि भगत सिंह का और दूसरे जितने भी फ्रीडम फाइटर्स थे उनको वो प्लेस नहीं मिला जो महात्मा गांधी को मिला. ये एक अलग विषय है, इसमें मैं नहीं जाना चाहूंगा. मैं केवल ये यहाँ बताना चाहूंगा कि महात्मा गांधी न्यू दैट हिज फाइट विद द रूलर्स हु आर इंटेलिजेंट एज वेल एज माइटी. अंग्रेज पढ़े लिखे भी हैं और ताकतवर भी है, ये महात्मा गांधी को समझ में आ गया. तो जब पढ़े लिखे हैं और ताकतवर हैं तो उसके साथ मैं लड़ूंगा कैसे? मेरे पास तो ताकत नहीं है. जब मेरे पास ताकत नहीं है तो देन ही अडॉप्टेड अहिंसा का रास्ता. बिकॉज व्हाई? बिकॉज द अदर गाय वाज इंटेलिजेंट. टॉकिंग टू an intelligent person in his own terms and convincing was easier than fighting war with English people. And that's the reason why we have a wonderful democracy after 70 years. नहीं तो ये हम कहीं और यदि मारपीट के यदि आजादी हासिल की होती तो we don't know what would have happened. What would have happened? यहाँ पे एक इंटरेस्टिंग चीज ये है कि महात्मा गांधी ने ये रास्ता अपनाया, लेकिन क्या ये रास्ता आज ओसामा बिन लादेन को मारने के लिए, टेररिस्ट को मारने के लिए पॉसिबल है? उसको समझा सकते हो आप? नहीं समझा सकते हो. ये दोनों झगड़े हैं, दोनों अपनी अपनी जगह बात अलग हो रही. क्यों? कि दूसरा जो अभी आप जिससे लड़ रहे हो टेररिस्ट से, दे हैव नो माइंड, दे हैव ओनली वेपन्स. तो यू कैन टॉक टू अ पर्सन हु डजंट हैव हिज ओन माइंड. रैशनल माइंड नहीं हो, सब कैसे बात करेंगे? तो ये एरोगेंस वाले पॉइंट में मैं आपसे केवल ये कहना चाहूंगा कि इफ इट इज एरोगेंस वेयर यू कैन करेक्ट द पर्सन, that's fine. If you cannot, then you have to live it, and you have to rather change your reaction for that particular event or happening.
Okay, okay. Thanks. Thanks so much. It is always lovely hearing you, sir. God bless you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks. Any other question, Amit?
Hi, sir. Do you have time to talk?
Yeah, please.
It was a pleasure hearing you.
Manoj, tell I can speak.
That's great. That's great. Sir, I just wanted to ask, now as you see in this generation that the people that were born after 2000 have really zero or less knowledge about Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
And I recently have started working and I've started implying my Bhagavad Gita, principles on. I am not I've just read only halfway. I'm halfway through. So what do you think the Western culture has, dominated our, the religion or the practices that we have? So what do you think this awareness might increase or might fade out? Because I feel जो Western culture का dominance है, वो अभी काफी ज़्यादा हो गया है. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, and let me try to answer your question to the best of my ability. Like first thing you told about the next generation. I am proud of the next generation, and I see this next generation is going to go to places. This is going to be whole generation, and the next to this generation is going to be awakened generation, because this generation is understanding well what is right and what is wrong. I mean, a lot of traditions, a lot of cultural practices are shunned by the new generation. Bhagavad Gita is definitely, since you told that you read Bhagavad Gita, it is going to touch your chord. कि इसमें यस मेरे लिए कुछ सीखने का है, तो नेक्स्ट जनरेशन इज गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड इट. और जहां तक वेस्टर्न कल्चर का इसका सवाल है, ये इन्फ्लुएंस हमारे ऊपर बहुत लंबे समय से चला आया था. जो 500-600 साल यदि हमने गुलामी की तो उससे बाहर निकलना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल जाता है. एंड और ओन सिस्टम डीमीन्ड आवरसेल्व्स कि हमें हर वो चीज जो हमारे यहाँ की है उसको आलोचना करने में, उसकी बुराई करने में, उसमें कोई खामी देखने में मजा आता है. बट दीज थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू चेंज सूनर रादर देन लेटर, बिकॉज नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ सोशल मीडिया एंड डेमोक्रेटाइजेशन ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, now everyone knows what was India and what is the contribution of India in the global ecosystem, whether it is political, religious, spiritual and everything. Even recently आप देखेंगे तो आपने वैक्सीन की जो सप्लाई इंडिया ने की है, तो इससे लगता है कि who is right and who is wrong. Getting my point? तो मैं यहाँ केवल ये कहना चाह रहा था कि वेस्टर्न कल्चर का इन्फ्लुएंस अभी है, लेकिन जब वेस्टर्न कल्चर आज देख लीजिए, ये यूरोप में युद्ध हो रहा है, तो यूरोप की कितनी खराब हालत है. दे आर इन शेम्बल्स.
Right.
तो यहाँ ये जहां भी ये जो फॉल्स जो एक इमेज बना रखी है हम लोगों ने अपने माइंड में, धीरे धीरे ये फेड हो जाएगी. एंड आई एम प्रीटी श्योर दैट नेक्स्ट जनरेशन विल अंडरस्टैंड द ट्रू मीनिंग ऑफ भगवद गीता. तो भगवद गीता एक्चुअली पूरा अगर इसको आप समझने की कोशिश करेंगे, ये लाइफ साइंस है. पूरा लाइफ आप इसमें देखेंगे तो आपको ये भी मिलेगा कि आपको खाना क्या चाहिए, कब खाना चाहिए, कितना खाना चाहिए, कितना सोना चाहिए, क्या एक्सरसाइज है लाइफ के अंदर. ये आपकी डाइटरी प्लान तक भगवद गीता के अंदर अवेलेबल. एंड लाइक मेस्लोस हायरार्की थ्योरी बात बताता हूँ, उसके अंदर आपको बताया गया है कि नीचे से आदमी जैसे कैसे ऊपर धीरे धीरे सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन की तरफ जाता है. भगवद गीता के त्रिगुणात्मक माया की जो बात करेंगे आप, त्रिगुण पूरी दुनिया 3 गुणों से चल रही है, तामसिक गुण, राजसिक गुण और रजोगुण. तो ये कंटिन्यूअस माइग्रेशन है फ्रॉम तामसिक गुण टू रजोगुण टू सत्वगुण. दैट इज व्हाट एक्चुअली मेस्लो इज सेइंग, दिस सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन थ्योरी. सो व्हाटएवर इज इन इंग्लिश वी गेट इंप्रेस्ड, but when we see all these things in our scriptures, ये तो यहाँ पे तो कहीं ना कहीं इसके लिए हमारे रिलीजियस लीडर भी जिम्मेदार रहे हैं. और फॉर्चुनेटली अभी जो नए न्यू एज रिलीजियस लीडर्स जो हैं, दे आर मोर ऑफ स्पिरिचुअल लीडर एंड लेस ऑफ रिलीजियस लीडर. तो होपफुली आई थिंक वी विल हैव फार बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ भगवद गीता एंड लेसन्स गोइंग फॉरवर्ड.
100%, sir. 100%. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Thank you.
Mr. Kannan, you are here with us. Mr. Kannan?
Here.
Yeah, a few thoughts from you on the Gita and management.
In fact, I was very happy to hear Mr. Mantri's speech. And of course, all these Puranas, what we have today, including Thirukural, no? Thirukural is just 2 line bullets. So what we find that whatever we are talking about justice today, governance, and you look at the aspects like management, delegation of power, and tactics, strategy, all that we can learn from here. And there was a question that whether Bhagavad Gita will go away or not. What I find whenever I go to temples nowadays, they distribute free Bhagavad Gita books also. I think they are in different languages. I think it is being done by ISKCON. Recently, I live near that Krishna temple, which was rebuilt at cost of 55 crores. When it was opened, they gave Bhagavad Gita to everyone who came to the temple. So we have a lot to learn, but only thing in today's world, when we are dealing with so many aspects, to find time to read Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, etc., it's really difficult. That is for sure. But I'm happy some of the channels again they started telecasting Mahabharata and etc. etc. The Puranas. They used to be very popular 20 years ago, and I was very impressed with what Mr. Mantri spoke, and from the discussion, the kind of questions raised by participants. So that is what I wanted to share. So,
thank you very much. Let me share two more small thoughts around this today's discussion. I would recommend all of you see Bhagavad Gita is a very abstract kind of subject. You may not get a lot of developing taste for reading Bhagavad Gita and understanding is little difficult because there are no stories in it. It's a dry subject kind of thing. So मैं आपसे request करूँगा कि better you start reading commentaries on it. And commentary of say for example the best commentary you will find is from Osho, because rest of the commentaries are having some kind of religious faith and all those things in it. But you can read Bhagavad Gita commentary of Osho, you can read Tilak ki Bhagavad Gita, you can read Gandhiji's Bhagavad Gita. I mean, many people have made commentaries on that, so that will be easy for us to understand, because otherwise I'm reading it for many years and I get confused even now that why it is mentioned here and something else is mentioned somewhere else. दूसरा एक आखिरी बात मैं बताना चाहूंगा कि जैसा आपने एक सवाल पूछा था कि whenever you open Bhagavad Gita, it answers your question and you find appropriate answer for your problem or your question. और आज सुबह का ही मैं आपके साथ इंसिडेंट शेयर करना चाहूंगा और भगवत गीता की वर्ड्स में आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहूंगा. जब मनोज जी ने कहा कि ये भगवत गीता मुझे बोलना है, तो सिंस देन आई वाज इन डिलेमा, बिकॉज I don't find myself appropriate person or authority or I mean empowered to talk about Bhagavad Gita. I'm too small a person. तो मैं उस दिन से डिलेमा में था कि ये विषय ऐसा है जिसमें मेरी अथॉरिटी नहीं है, मेरी योग्यता नहीं है, मैं बात कैसे करूंगा. और ये डिलेमा में आज सुबह था. जब सुबह मैंने भगवत गीता का 18वां अध्याय खोला तो बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज आखिरी में, एज इफ दिस लॉर्ड वांटेड टू आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन एंड लेट मी रीड इट. ये बड़ी अच्छी बात आखिरी में उन्होंने पढ़ी है कि जो पुरुष इस धर्म में हम दोनों के समातृ. एक मिनट, इसके अंदर ये आपका यहाँ से आता है ऑन 69th वर्स ऑफ चैप्टर 18. जो मेरा डिलेमा था वो एक लाइन में ही खत्म हो गया. जो पुरुष मुझ में परम प्रेम करके इस परम रहस्य गीता शास्त्र को मेरे भक्तों में कहेगा वो मुझको ही प्राप्त होगा, इसमें कोई संदेह नहीं. उससे बढ़कर मेरा प्रिय कार्य करने वाला मनुष्य में कोई भी नहीं. मतलब एनीबडी हु वांट टू लर्न गीता, एनीबडी हु इज टॉकिंग अबाउट गीता, and anybody who wants to listen Gita from someone and somebody is doing that, he is I am happy with that person. तो मुझे लगा कि मेरा एक बर्डन निकल गया कि मैं कॉम्पिटेंट नहीं हूँ, मैं बात कैसे करूंगा. तो उसमें एक आंसर आ गया एक तरीके से कि भाई anybody can talk whatever you learn from Bhagavad Gita, it's an ocean of nectar, और हमारे लिए एक बूंद भी बहुत है. Thank you very much with these words. Thanks for this wonderful audience. And I hope I try to do justice with this.
Excellent, Mr. Mantri ji. There are a few questions in the chat box. Yeah. If you can look at it, or Dr. Amit Jain, if you can read them.
Yeah, if just 1 minute.
There are some addressed to you, and there are some in the chat box for everybody.
I think I think there are no questions.
Mantri ji,
Ah.
if I may be allowed to ask one question.
Yeah, just put a video on, Dushanji.
Yeah. You gave a few examples of Modi ji.
Yeah.
I would ask, what do you think about whether Modi is a Krishna or Modi is Arjun?
Sir, I tell you one thing. Modi is neither Krishna nor Arjun. He is a wonderful human being. He is a manifestation of some supreme power. और सुप्रीम पावर जो है कृष्ण के बाद कोई भी चॉइस अवतार बन के कोई नहीं आया. मैं यहाँ एक बात बोलना चाहूंगा कि anybody who is achieved something significant, he is no ordinary person. So that way we must understand that the person who reaches to the post of prime minister or president of a country or to the highest post, he is actually, I mean, trained, developed, and got prepared for that job. Let me put it different way. Who is going to be the prime minister in 2050? Nobody knows about it. Today we don't know. But the person who is going to be prime minister in 2050 is very much around us. He has already taken birth. He is very much getting trained. He is getting honed. His skills are getting honed. The point is the destiny or the universal consciousness is aware about it. Who is required at each place? हमारे हर एक के रोल है. And we can't do anything beyond that. इसलिए भगवद गीता में बड़ी अच्छी बात बोली है कि I am sitting in the body of everyone. And whatever is happening in this world is happening in auto mode. और आखिरी में उसको कृष्ण अर्जुन को बोल दिया कि even if you don't want to fight, your nature will take you to the fight. You have to fight. There is no way out. So whatever we are doing, we are part of a big picture, and we are destined to do whatever we are doing. We can't do anything less than that or more than that. You see the picture in a movie hall, and you see it once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times. You don't see something different. I mean, that is actually the whole drama is well directed. Similarly, here also the whole drama is directed. इसमें एक छोटी सी मुझे बात याद आती है. मेरा एक फ्रेंड गोदरेज में काम करता था और ये हम सबको मालूम है लिरिल गोदरेज का बहुत अच्छा साबुन था. तो लिरिल वाज अ वेरी गुड प्रोडक्ट, वेरी गुड सेलिंग प्रोडक्ट, एंड स्पेशली उसने मुझे बताया कि लिरिल क्यों ज्यादा बिकता है. तो वो जब उसका विज्ञापन था, उसमें एक लड़की वाटरफॉल के अंदर नहा रही होती है और वो उछलती है. तो गांव के लोग उस विज्ञापन को बार बार देखते थे कि कभी न कभी तो पूरी बाहर आएगी, दिखेगी, बिकॉज दे थॉट दैट देयर इज समथिंग मोर इन इट, बट दैट वाज अ ड्रामा. सिमिलरली यहाँ ऑल्सो ये जो पूरी लाइफ है ना सर, हम लोग चाहें कि मैं ये कर लूँ या वो कर लूँ, हमें लगता है कि हम डूअर नहीं है. वी आर ओनली अ स्मॉल कॉग इन द व्हील एंड द होल व्हील इज मूविंग एंड एवरीबडी इज परफॉर्मिंग देयर ड्यूटी. तो भगवान कृष्ण ने यहाँ तक कहा है कि जुआ के अंदर मैं हूँ, द्यूत में हूँ, मतलब जो दुनिया में सबसे अच्छी चीज है वो भी मैं हूँ, जो सबसे खराब चीज है वो भी, मतलब he says that char achar, whether it is life or lifeless, everything is manifested by me. So it's actually manifestation of the universal consciousness.
Mr. Mantri, there are some couple of questions by Anup and Pradnya in the chat box. If you can look at it, or Dr. Amit, if you can read it.
Dr. Amit, if you can read, that will be better, because my chat box is not moving, unfortunately.
Okay, Anup has asked you about any simplified ebook which explains relevance of Bhagavad Gita and how it can be applied practically in our day-to-day life and management problems.
Amit, I think in the era of Google, you just Google Bhagavad Gita management lessons, Bhagavad Gita life lessons, Bhagavad Gita these lessons, that lessons, you find in number of comment and stuff on that. So I think there will get a lot of things. And as I explained, ओशो की जो भगवद गीता है वो आप पढ़े तो बहुत अच्छी रहेगी. इट विल एक्सप्लेन यू मेनी थिंग्स. ऑन चैप्टर 2 इज मोर देन इनफ, चैप्टर 1 or 2 is more than enough. And we all know that Osho has never written anything. He has only spoken, and whatever he spoke is documented today. So I think 35-40 years back he delivered lecture on Bhagavad Gita in Ahmedabad, and all those are documented in the form of book. So you will find a lot of videos also of Osho.
So there is one more question from Pradnya Nayak. What are the steps being taken to teach the Gita in our education institute like school, college, etc., so that when the student steps into the real world, they are not well equipped to deal with the various challenges?
Unfortunately, in this entire debate of secularism and religious, this thing, we forgot that Bhagavad Gita is not a religious book. तो हमें एक तो सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये है कि जब भी कभी भगवत गीता को किसी कोर्स वेयर में लाने की बात होती है तो इशू खड़ा हो जाता है कि इट्स ए रिलीजियस बुक. पीपल डोंट अंडरस्टैंड दैट इट्स नॉट रिलीजियस बुक. It doesn't talk about any god. It's a communication between two people. One is mentor and the other one is mentee. And जो भगवान वगैरह जो word यहाँ use हुए हैं वो because it is written by Vedas. So somebody is writing on behalf of somebody else, then he is using respectable words. एक छोटी सी मैं यहाँ पे थोड़ा डाइग्रेस हो रहा हूँ, लेकिन एक जो हम रोज आरती पढ़ते हैं, आरती बोलते हैं, ओम जय जगदीश हरे, वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग है. इससे मैं रिलेट करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि कहाँ रिलीजियन को घुसा देते हैं. ओम जय जगदीश हरे का यदि आप हम लोग रोज पढ़ते हैं लेकिन उसका मीनिंग हमने कभी समझने की कोशिश नहीं की. यदि उसका मीनिंग समझेंगे तो इट हैज नो मेंशन ऑफ लॉर्ड. वो किसी भगवान की बात नहीं, वो हिंदू की एक्चुअली वो हिंदू मुसलमान की प्रेयर ही नहीं है, वो एक ह्यूमन बीइंग की प्रेयर है टू द यूनिवर्स, गॉड ऑफ यूनिवर्स. ओम जय जगदीश हरे, लॉर्ड ऑफ यूनिवर्स. लॉर्ड ऑफ यूनिवर्स में किधर भगवान हिंदू के होगा मुसलमान के होगा, उसमें है ही नहीं. It's a very simple confession statement that मैं मूर्ख खल कामी, मतलब you are तुम एक अगोचर, I mean you are omnipresent, you are present everywhere and you are unseen. I mean where is the इसमें कहाँ भगवान आ गया, कोई भगवान नहीं है. The point is that how the things are presented is very important. I think we have miles to go before this Bhagavad Gita is introduced in school curriculum. बिकॉज यहाँ पे जब तक ये सोशलिज्म और रिलीजियस इसको हम वो देते रहेंगे तब तक ही होगा. ओनली इनलाइटेंड पीपल, ओनली स्टूडेंट्स हु रियली वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड विल मूव इन दैट डायरेक्शन. आई थिंक इट कैन नॉट बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड एज अ कोर्स.
Excellent, Mr. Mantri ji. Overwhelming response. There's a lot of more expectations, and people are requesting for a Gita Gyan series. So more and more people from corporate world can get connected and globally. So it's really wonderful. And
I took more than the allotted time. I took almost 1 hour 15 minutes where I think
Gita Gyan, there is no limit. There is no limit. It's unlimited.
Manoj,
and this will be unlimited series. This will be unlimited series. Yeah, Dr. Amit.
Just wanted to add one thing. What last question was asked. As per Indian Constitution, Bhagavad Gita is not allowed to be taught in the school, as per my understanding. So that is restricted. Just wanted to answer that last question. Manoj, you can continue.
Well, I'll just say Constitution gives freedom, and as far as schools are concerned, there is syllabus which is drafted by some committees, and hopefully it will be updated, and benefits of the principles and practices would be shared in all the educational institutions globally. And I would just say risk. Bhagavad Gita says take risk, do right action. And what is right action? And how to manage the risk? We will have we are looking forward to detailed insights and a series of presentations on this topic. Mr. Ravi and Mr. Sanjay, are you there with us? Mr. Sanjay?
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Sanjay?
Sanjay Gaggari here.
Yeah, if you can share, put your video on and share a couple of insights before Mr. Ravi starts this presentation on risk management for the corporate world, for investment bankers, for capital market, for industry, for global M&A. and lots more. Valuations.
So Manojji, actually I'm traveling. I have a bandwidth issue, so I will not be
Okay.
able to give you a video. But let me tell you, on the Bhagavad Gita, actually I keep writing my blogs, my post on the LinkedIn very regularly. It was a very interesting session, and yes, what everybody is saying that Bhagavad Gita is a journey. It's not a book to read. It's something which you have to introspect every day in and out. And obviously people like us who are in the middle age crisis, sometimes realize that what is our journey is all about. And that's that. If that point of time some blessing happens, and if probably you can get to have a good connection and good karmas, you may get a good insight about Bhagavad Gita through a guru, whether it's from ISKCON or somebody, because I am associated more with the ISKCON. But yeah, I mean, this is overall the interesting perspective on Bhagavad Gita. There are three ways that we can achieve our what we call the karma yoga, the bhakti yoga, and Gyan yoga. And there are commentaries available from that perspective. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, you see the author's background. What was his journey all about? So some of the books are focusing more from the karma yoga perspective. Some of the books are focusing more on the bhakti yoga, and some of them are focusing more on the Gyan yoga part of it. So I mean, all these three yogas which Krishna has prescribed is all about your journey. It's not that one is more superior to other. The Lord always says at the end of the day, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that you have to believe that you are my instrument. You are here to perform something. You are bounded by the nature. And ये सारी प्रकृति मेरी अध्यक्षता में ही काम करती है. भगवान कृष्ण ने डिक्लेयर कर दिया. Entire prakriti is under my control. So when we are all about Panchamahabhutas, our body is made of Panchamahabhuta. So it is practically we are controlled by the Supreme Lord. I mean, whether he is a form of Allah, Jesus, Krishna, that is not material. It is not a religious text at all. It is everybody. We are all about Jivatmas. So we are like Arjunas. We are fighting our internal war. We are fighting our external war, and there is a war going on. There is a duality of the life which we have to deal with every day in and out. So it talks about so many things in that 700 shlokas that it gives you a summarized version of Vedas and Upanishads. And that's the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. No text can be as profound in your meaningful life than the Bhagavad Gita. So it's like a Gita. It's ultimately what we call a song of your life. So everybody can correlate the insight from the Bhagavad Gita based on your own journey, because everybody's journey is unique. At the end of the day, the Lord says that you are not supposed to copy paste the karma or anything from the other. Today, the biggest problem we Indians are facing is that we are trying to copy paste from the West. In fact, there is a more civilized way, or there is a more modern ways of figuring out the Japanese or even the Korean economies. The East is more powerful, but we have been somehow or other impacted by the Western philosophies and those things. And there again in the 18th chapter, at the end of the day, the Lord says that we are all unique. You have to figure it out. You don't have to copy paste. Better to live your imperfect life than copying the perfection of others. That's the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. And at the end of the day, there is a Upanishad shloka that at the whatever we do, I mean, the beauty lies in the imperfection somehow or other. Because there's nothing like imperfection. 1 + 1 is equal to 2, but for a Lord, it is 1 + 1 is equal to 11. I mean, that's the beauty of our karma. So there is no imperfection. As long as you have done your karma with a selfless motive, with a mindfulness, I don't think there is anything called imperfection. It's all about learning. So this is something I summarize in a very short form, that in our corporate life, in our professional life, in our personal life, in our social life, keep doing your swadharma, keep doing your duty with the right selfless motive, with the right ways to achieve our objective, with the right ways of mindfulness. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjay. Sanjay, you have been a CFO. And Archana Moge is here with us. Archana, you and your family have deep knowledge of Sanskrit, Gita, risk management also. Are you there? Can we have a few words from you?
Yeah, Manojji, thank you.
Just put your video on.
Okay. Yeah.
Archana is a eminent banker also.
Yeah. Sorry, Manojji, I was not. I just logged in now, so I just heard the last part of it about keeping, doing one's duty. I couldn't hear the first part. But you know, I would just like to share a story, if you permit me.
Sure.
Which I heard in the morning today, and you know, once what happened was there was a call by God, and He asked everyone. Like everyone is having lots of problems and you know, grief. So He asked everyone to, you know, just pack off their grief in a suitcase and just leave it at one place. And it was decided that at so and so place, everyone has to just pack off their grief and leave it over there. And then someone would take off from there. Okay. And so that they won't have any grief. So everyone was very excited that चलो मेरा दुख अभी मुझे दुख से छुटकारा मिल जाएगा. So and everyone excitedly went over there at that place, and they packed off their bags and they kept all their bags of grief over there. And then later on, suddenly there was an announcement. Great, now you have left your bag of grief. Now you can pick up some other bag of grief. Whatever you have left, you need not take that one, but you can pick up someone else's one. But then no one was ready to pick up any other bag. They said that okay, जो हमारा है वही ठीक है. So the moral of the story is everyone has some positives and negatives, and everyone has some dukh or the other. But people are better off at the end of the day to carry their own bag of grief rather than others' bags of grief, because you never know. The other person's suffering may be much more than what you are suffering. So just an interesting story that I heard. Yeah.
Very interesting. And Archana, Gita talks about karma yoga and karma yogis. Ajay, we were just talking about him. He has been throughout his life a karma yogi, always willing to share knowledge, experiences, guiding, mentoring others, and also without any expectations. That's the real essence of Gita. Something you would like to share about him in a couple of words?
Yeah, Ajay was a very jolly good person, and he always used to be there for our meetings. And he had a quest for knowledge and quest for networking. And I think the last time we met in MCA, Mumbai Cricket Association, when everyone had come over for dinner. And he had arranged for that particular meetup in MCA. And really, it was a shocking news to hear about him, but I'm sure we will continue to keep him in our minds, and he will continue to stay in our minds forever.
His spirit will always be there with us. And with this, Ravi, are you there?
Of course.
Yeah, and Dr. Amit?
Yes.
Dr. Amit, a few words from you before Ravi starts its deep dive presentation.
Mantri ji gave a very good presentation. I'm always connected to him and would regarding this Gita Gyan, he is the one who need to be connected every time. I know him since last 10 to 12 years and get a lot of wisdom from him. So Ravi, next presentation is from Ravi. He is a CFO in an organization and has a very vast experience regarding risk. So would like him to introduce himself and start the presentation.
Thank you, Manoj ji. Thank you, Amit ji. It would be a great pleasure for me to sort of talk about the risks of the various corporates and the companies in the ecosystem face, and what are the various mitigation methodologies that we need to look at while evaluating a business proposal or a M&A strategy or investing in secondary market or investing in primary market. And before that, I just want to talk about the risk is a very huge subject and a very big subject. But I think one author has done a very good job in understanding risk and how to understand the risk itself is a big subject. I think all of you would have read this book. Nicholas Nassim Taleb has written 2 books. He's written 7 or 8 books, but I think 2 books are very, very well written. One is Black Swan, which is what I would say, it's a compendium of the risks. He has divided the risk into 3 parts. One is a known, second is known unknown, and the third is unknown. Am I right? And how to assign probability to these 3 would give you the rear mirror view of how to navigate business, investments, and how to manage investee companies. I think this is a must read for all of us from the finance field or from the field of investment. The second book that he has written is Fooled by Randomness, which is again a book where how the various mathematical probabilities overrule us in our decision-making process and how it fools us. I think I would suggest strongly to all of us in the business field, as well as in the finance field, to read the book on your own, interpret yourself, and then we can have a very meaningful discussion. And I have read the book many times myself, and it has been very interesting reading. And his writing skills and the way he narrates the risks are absolutely fabulous. And I found that book extremely interesting because I come from a background of accounts, finance, and financial analysis. And as a result, I find this book extremely interesting because many of the variables are beyond our control. As far as my background is concerned, I have got 2 postgraduate degrees. And first 20 years between 1992 and 2012, I was in capital markets. I started my career in Jardine Fleming, which was taken over with JP Morgan. Thereafter, I was with ICICI Securities, IDBI Capital. Then I was with Daiwa, and the last stint before I quit the capital markets in 2012 was in BOB Capital Markets. And from 2013 onwards, I was in corporate. And first, I was with Rolta India Limited for 3 years as an IR function, looking after and servicing the bondholders between 2013 and 2016. And from 2016 to 2021, I was with Hinduja Global Solutions, an IR function which had involved a lot of other functions like credit, risk assessment, advising the proxy advisory, etc., etc. From April onwards, I'm with a startup company called Valuations Technologies as a full-time efficient CFO. Last week, Manoj ji told me to make a presentation on the risks and the various risks that we encounter on a daily basis. So I just thought that subject would be interesting to all of you. And I thought I will just take you through many of the risks and some of the risks which actually impact us from our investment point. Today's theme is various risks the companies across the sectors have to face and what are the mitigation tools available. I may sound a little bookish. For the purpose of adhering to best practices, we need to follow all the below mentioned points subconsciously when you're evaluating or analyzing a business or a balance sheet. There are 2 types of risk when you invest. One is a business risk, where the variables are beyond control, and one is a balance sheet risk, where the variables are in our control. Most of you might be knowing, or all of them, this principle in piecemeal. Nevertheless, I'm putting together in a very structured way so that everybody can understand and assimilate in a structured way. What are the types of risks? One is a business risk. Other is an earnings risk. You can have a great business, but there can be no profitability growth. There can be burning business. There is no business risk and there is no profitability, but there could be a valuation risk. And the management risk is something that we cannot predict at all. And the last but not the least is the regulatory risk, in which nobody has got any control, because tomorrow the government can actually change the regulations in toto or in piecemeal, which can go against a company's business prospects. In addition to that, I think what we need to closely monitor is the FCF to EBITDA factor. I think companies which doesn't generate good FCF to EBITDA, either while buying or while investing in secondary market, have to be closely monitored, because companies which doesn't generate good free cash flow cannot fund internal accruals, and they look forward to taking debt. And when the interest rate cycle go up, this debt can become a millstone for the company. So it is very important that at least in the peak of the business cycle, companies do generate free cash flow and fund their internal accruals, fund their capital expenditure through internal accruals. I think the other important point which we all need to keep in mind, which we all do, but nevertheless I'm again making it as a point, is the net debt equity. Am I right? Many people don't look at this ratio very closely, and they say that the business is growing. But when it's a commodity business, when the prices are going up, you don't see the net debt equity or the gross debt equity very closely. But when the prices fall, particularly in metal sector, then what happens is that if the profits are not going to go up and the cash flows are not going to come through, this debt can become a huge millstone. I think we have seen how the steel companies have paid their debt in the last 3 years. So now the valuations of these companies look attractive because the companies have got far less debt than what it was 7 to 8 years back. Then
Ravi, is your screen being shown? If you can show the slides on a screen, that will be useful.
No, I think I have not.
Yeah, just put it on screen.
Can you help me out, because I have some problem here. I try to do it, but I think whenever I do it, I think the system gets crashed.
Okay. Then carry on. Yeah.
The other ratio is the net debt to EBITDA. Of course, you can put it in our group, Manoj, so that people can go through. It is not something that I'm saying out of all of these ratios are well known to people. I'm just putting it in a structured way. The net debt to EBITDA is another ratio which you people have to look at very closely. If the debt is going up and the EBITDAs are not growing fast enough, that should be a sign of alarm for most companies. ROE, ROC, and ROCI, the return on incremental capital employed and the return on invested capital employed are to be monitored very closely. Many people buy and sell the stock based on certain public information or in private information, and the most people end up doing it in the stock market. But when we actually buy businesses, either doing an M&A transaction or transaction advisory, all these ratios have to be looked at very closely through multiple business cycle, and I have to see how other companies in the business are doing and do a peer review of it. So when any proposal comes to me, either while writing an equity research report or while advising the CFO in that matter, I try to ensure that these parameters are looked at least for 3 to 4 years from multiple business cycle to ensure that I don't miss out anything, and all those points are well taken while we finally narrate the narration. I don't know, many of these companies which are coming with an initial primary offering for stage funding may not have all the requisite financial, but the promoter management must be honest and should have a scalable and sustainable business model. The exception that I want to make here is that it may not be all these points are valuable only if it is a listed company or the company has got a good track record. But if the companies are from the unlisted space or a startup company, all these financial parameters cannot be met in totality. However, what is very critical is that the promoter should be of good, and one should get a feel for things. The business model is scalable and sustainable. So that is very critical. So it is not necessarily all the financial parameters have to be met in the first point itself. But in the case where the financial parameters are not met, then I think ability to judge the management, ability to assess the management's intentions and intent, and more importantly, whether the business has got scalability and sustainability, whether the product has got demand in elasticity, have to be sufficiently assessed. Whether we run and manage the company's operations or while investing in investing company, the business should have a scalable and sustainable business model, and the assessment of following risk qualitatively and quantitatively have to be ascertained. What is not scalable is not sustainable, and what is not sustainable is not scalable. I think that is very important. So it is very important that the demand is reasonably inelastic and not seasonal when we assess the business. Now I take the first point, the business risk. In the business risk, there are 6 points that we need to keep in mind. How customers of a company are doing, are they creditworthy or not, is what we need to keep in mind. Am I right? First thing is that when we want to look at a company, how big is the customer profile? How well the customers of credit is good or not? If there is no point in having 100 customers in an investee company and none of the customers are creditworthy. So what will happen is that if the customers are not creditworthy, there will be more receivables in the balance sheet, which may have to be written off. So what we are doing is that we are actually showing an inflated profit by not exactly assessing the credit risk or profile of the customer of the investee company. Then the second thing is that the competitive landscape. Am I right? If there is going to be a change in the competitive landscape, and if there's going to be a sudden surge in the supply, or if there is going to be a sudden contraction to demand, then I think that competitive landscape have to be assessed first, and so that we know what's going to happen to the earnings going forward. So these are all various business risks which actually play out on the revenue side itself. Is the business you are considering is a monopolistic or a oligopolistic or perfect competition? Sometimes what happens is that whether in telecom or whether in other businesses, we need to assess whether it is going to be a monopolistic, oligopolistic, or in perfect competition. If it is in perfect competition, you know the most of the risks are already priced in. But if it is in a monopoly situation and tomorrow there is going to be a deregulation by the government or by any other means, then there is going to be competition. And then the business which was a price giver will suddenly become a price taker. And as a result, the revenues can contract very fast on account of the demand contraction, on account of supply coming from various sources. If the former, then if it is going to be a price taker business, then factoring of price increases would lead to overstating of future profits. So when we make revenue forecast and when the landscape is changing on account of monopoly being taken off, then what happens is that there is going to be a price erosion, and the revenue growth that the company has shown in the past may not be sustained, and it cannot be sustained. And as a result, if the revenues are not going to grow, then and if the costs are going to remain the same, then it is going to have impact on the profitability. So there is no point in dragging the Excel sheet saying that if the company was growing at 20%, driven by volumes of 15% and price increase of 5%, we should not assume that 15:5 ratio and drag it. I think we should be more careful in ensuring that those qualitative factors are factored in, and we should apply a discount to the 15% growth and probably take much lower growth to ensure that risk emanating from the competitive change in landscape and the being a price taker be budgeted in our revenue model. So that way what happens is there's no negative surprises to our earnings forecast, to revenue forecast and probably to the earnings forecast. So we have factoring those risks coming from dynamic situation is actually going to ensure that we don't overstate revenue and actually fool the secondary market investors or the primary market investors or the investing company or investing in an unlisted company. Now comes the earnings risk. If a firm has underprovided certain expenses, it is better that we undertake sensitivity analysis to show the extent of underprovisioning and the downside impact to distributed profit. What I'm trying to mean is that if the company has not provided sufficiently for the receivables, am I right? Many times what happens is that the company doesn't do aging of receivables properly. And as a result, many of the receivables are not properly impaired. And as a result, the revenues, the profitability is overstated, which needs to be factored in. If the company has consistently underprovided taxes in various tax jurisdictions, then we need to be very careful, because if the effective tax rates are significantly lower than, say, hypothetically 20%, then what happens is that there has to be somewhere that the company is doing tax jugglery, which needs to be factored in, because normally the effective tax rates have to be between 20 and 25%, assuming that the revenue mix is between 80-20. Now, if the revenue mix is significantly overseas, then it's okay. But if it is of domestic, then I think, and if any under provisioning of taxes, then what we need to do is that we need to do a sensitivity analysis of it, and we should provide sufficient taxes to ensure that while doing profitability forecasting, we take a higher tax provisioning from the unprovided or underprovided taxes of the preceding years to ensure there is no negative surprises coming in the subsequent years that we look at the profitabilities. If the firm is underprovided on suspect receivables, treat that part of the receivable as irrecoverable and charge the future profit. My reasoning is that there are many cases where the receivables are many times are continually evergreened, and evergreening of receivable is rampant in Indian corporates as well as in overseas. So what happens is that like the way NPA is evergreen, receivables too are evergreen many times in conjunction and collusion with auditors. So as a result, we need to be very careful, and wherever we believe there are receivables above 180 days are accounting for probably more than 10-15%, then it is prudent that we take 50% or 60% of the overage receivables and provide it in the P&L to ensure that the future receivables are not overstated, future profitability is not overstated. So these are all the risks that can emanate, and these are the risks that we need to factor in so that we don't overstate. And while talking to the investors, either on the FDI side, as well as the FI side or the DFI side, we actually give them the rear mirror view. Am I right? So that is what I used to tell them. So there's no point in telling all goody things, but you should also tell the investors these are all the pain points that balance sheet is carrying, and which may come to our knowledge, if not today, in subsequent years. So if you flag them off upfront, they at least know what is the downside to the profitability and the impact of the profitability on the stock price or on the valuation. Now I come to the crucial point, which is a talking point among the market participant, and the valuation risk. Valuation risk is if the company trading at a significant premium to the market, to its peers, and then so why it's to be assessed. See, for a long time, HDFC has been trading at a significant premium to other banking companies in the banking sector. For that matter, Infosys and TCS have been consistently trading at a much higher valuation than the rest, and we all know the reasons for it. Now, and if there is a sustainable data point to prove that those points can be justified, then we can go with it. But in a short span of time, if a company is trading at a much higher valuation, then we need to factor the reasons for it and why it is not sustainable. Am I right? If it has got a concentrated portfolio, say for example, in a small company, one large investor is holding say 10%, and as a result, if it is trading at a premium valuation, and if the same investor decides to sell, then what happens is that it will come and dump the stock, or on a bad day, it will come and dump the stock. Then what happens is that the valuation will have a steep correction. So we need to inform the investors that this is a rear mirror view of the valuation, which we have to keep in mind. And if not, what happens is that if you tell that please buy, and please buy, then what happens is that many times the investor will buy on your recommendation, but he will not see the risks that are emanating from a concentrated portfolio of few investors who may decide to sell on the back of some inside information or any other information they may have. So it is better that we look at the valuation from a peer review point of view, and what is the reason for if a stock is trading at a premium or a discount. If it is trading at a discount, then there is no downside risk. But if it is trading at a premium or the mean, then we need to be extremely careful why it is trading. And if you're not able to find a justifiable answer, and if it is going to trade for a seasonal period of time, then it is better that we wait for the stock to correct or the business valuation to correct for fresh entry into the stock from a secondary market point of view, or while buying the business from a selling company. The other critical point which you people might be knowing, but are more qualitative in nature, is the management discreetly treating the larger minority shareholder vis-a-vis the smaller has to be kept in mind. Am I right? Nowadays, because of SEBI LODR, those discriminations have been completely subsided or greatly subsided. But when I started my career, there used to be a great discrimination between a larger minority shareholder like the institutional investor and then smaller minority shareholder like the retail shareholders. Am I right? So in those days, the information used to be given on offline basis, and they used to have a price advantage, and the retail shareholders will not have the price advantage. Even now, I think it is not rampant, but it is definitely happening on a discrete basis. So we need to understand where the management is treating, how they are treating the minority shareholders in toto. If there is a discrimination, then I think we need to keep that in mind. Then what we also need to find is that how whether management shares have been pledged or not. Am I right? If the business can be doing great, the margins will not see any significant decline. The profitability growth could be very decent. The capital ratios might be doing well. The capital efficiency ratios might be doing well. Even the company can generate free cash flow. However, if the shares are pledged, then we know what happened with S-Bank. We know what happened with ILFS and many other stocks. So all things going good, if the pledged shares come up for sale, and if they're sold desperately by the owner of the pledged shares, then what happens is that there is no, the stock price will see tremendous devastation, and all our good things that we said about the business will come to naught, because if you buy at 100 rupees and the stock becomes 50, then you have a very, you will feel very sad about it. So in order to ensure that whether there are pledged shares needs to be kept in mind, and this is a very, very critical factor which most investors overlook it. And I strongly suggest and advise that in spite of looking at the business growth, also look at the quarter-on-quarter shareholding pattern is very essential. If there is a trend of FII buying, if there is a trend of promoter selling, and a trend of the pledged shares going up, all these are all lead indicators that something is cooking and that we need to decipher it, and the risk attached with it should be assimilated. If the promoters are buying, then it's okay, there are no risk attached. But if there's FII buying happening along with pledged shares going up, then I think definitely we need to double check whether what is going on in the stock and whether it has got any impact on the business, because the promoter knows the business better, and promoter is the first one to know the business. So we need to be ahead of the curve in order to understand from all these data points and how we should decipher how the business is going to do in the coming months and quarters. It also gives a sense whether promoters are playing the stock market or not. Am I right? It is very critical that if the promoters on the one hand are telling that the company is doing great, but if the promoters themselves are selling in the stock or playing in the stock through a house broker or whatever, then what happens is that it doesn't augur well. So we need to be very careful and should assess those qualitative risks upfront to ensure that we don't get fooled by the promoter's wickedness. We need to be very, very careful about it. And these are all some things that which are not taught by the professional business schools, because they never will teach all these things. It is only an experienced man who has sat on the research desk for years and years together can understand these issues and explain this to fund managers on a day in and day out basis. The last is the regulatory risk. Am I right? The regulatory risk is the mother of all risk. Thus, reading all the policies, procedures, and circulars are mandatory. More importantly, discussing the same is very important to understand the short-term impact and medium-term implication on the economy, inflation, interest rates, and its inverse correlation have to be kept in mind. Am I right? We have seen many times the tax laws are changed, the GST rates are changed overnight. It can have an impact on the profitability and overnight. So it is very difficult to predict the regulatory risk. It is very difficult to predict what is the import tariff that they're going to impose, what is the non-tariff barrier that they're going to impose. So what I'm trying to be qualitatively telling you is that if there is an intelligent information doing ground, then I think we need to have a very big network of people with whom we discuss pretty much on a weekly basis and understand what is the US Senate thinking about on the non-tariff base on IT companies, whether they're going to levy any extra import duty on Indian products, on textiles, etc. So what happens is that it can have an impact on the exports, it can have impact on the profitability, it can have an impact on the capital efficiency ratios of Indian companies. Last important is that the economy, because there is no point in saying Indian companies are exporting to a country in Paraguay or a Colombia or a Turkey or some godforsaken country, because many of these countries doesn't have the capability to pay. Am I right? You can, if somebody is having a large exposure to Turkey or large exposure to say Paraguay or whatever countries, I get a scare because are these exports genuine? Are they opened in LC? And what is very critical is that whether they're going to record the receivables, are the revenues, or there's going to be some kind of a round tripping happening. So it is important that the economy that we export are of sound, and they have the ability to pay our Indian companies, or when we buy a company from overseas, whether such companies have such not so good exposure. What is very critical is that interest rates. Am I right? Today, the talk of the town is interest rates. Now, fortunately, India right now has done a lot of deleveraging over the last 3 years. As a result, many of the balance sheets don't have the pain of high debt in the balance sheet. But if you go back 3 to 4 years, the debt equity ratios were very not so good. And as a result, any increase in interest rates used to be a big pain. And so if the interest rates today, it's a deleveraged balance sheet, so interest rates are not going to have a big pain. But if the inflations are going to go up on account of imported inflation or on account of domestic inflation, then interest rates are bound to go up. And with high debt equity, companies, we can avoid companies' high debt equity, because those companies will have to eventually pay high interest rates and if the cash flows don't support, then the debt service coverage ratio and the interest rate coverage ratio comes to suspect. So it is important on what cycle we are in. If today, if interest rates are likely to go up on the back of US interest rates going up, then it is better to avoid high debt equity companies or companies where the pricing powers are not great. Then comes the, what I would say, the currency factor. Now, the currency factor is another big risk. Normally, balance sheet having little forex debt is good, but if there's a large forex debt in the balance sheet and if the rupee depreciates, then for no rhyme or reason, we will have a high debt equity which cannot be served. So we have to be very, very careful in assessing those points and not go and buy that stock with high debt equity, with high forex debt in the debt component, because we know that such companies can come into bigger risk, because overseas debt can balloon and can put the debt equity ratio out of whack, and it can come under serious, what I would say, credit risk. And at that point of time, if the stock price falls on account of over leverage, then we will look very foolish. So these are some of the various factors that I thought I will bring to your attention. And many of the risks are known, but I think what I've done is that I put together in a very structured way so that we can have an easy recall and not make the mistake of repeating it. Because there are only two risks. One is a business risk, which cannot be exactly computed, but the balance sheet risk can be very well computed. And if the balance sheet risk along with the shareholding pattern risk can be very well assessed, then I think we can make far more judicious investing strategy and make a very steady return of around 20% CAGR, rather than looking for 100% return and then again losing the 100%, which will make us very sad and very bad. Thank you, and I'm open for questions.
Excellent presentation, Raviji. Just wanted to highlight one thing. I have done my PhD, which is on the same topic which you have mentioned. I have taken Ultimate Z-score and used it for equity investment and checked the performance for 3 years. And I realized that the performance can be improved significantly over the period of time if you just follow a single ratio, Ultimate Z-score, to manage the risk, as well as.
I completely agree.
So anything else other than Ultimate Z-score which you recommend, which can be followed to check the balance sheet risk?
I apart from Ultimate Z-score, which is a very fine example we have given, I normally look at free cash flow as a very critical factor. Am I right? If the company is able to constantly generate free cash flow, that means the profitability growth of the company, or the reported profit of the company, is actually a fact. Am I right? There are many instances where the EBITDA is growing, that the company is not generating free cash flow, even with a lower capex. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the receivables are getting parked in the revenues is getting parked in receivables. Right? So that I'm trying to tell you. If the receivables are collected within say 90 days, then I think the companies can generate sufficient fund to undertake capex on at least on a bull cycle of the business. But I think the most critical factor is free cash flow, return on incremental capital employed, and return on invested capital employed. If these are all trending around 30 degrees to 40 degrees consistently, then I think the business can never go wrong. ITC may be a meme stock in the stock market parlance, but I think if you look at their business and the free cash flow, they have not come to the capital market forever, and they are not here to what I would say. They never diluted capital. So what I'm trying to tell you is that capital efficiency driven business is the best way to buy. It may not perform in the stock market because many stocks don't perform in the short run, but I think you don't lose sleep over it. That is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks a lot.
Dr. Amit, I think there are a couple of questions which are coming in the chat box also. Can you just go through them?
Sir, we hear a lot. Chandar is asking, sir, we hear a lot about Adani Group being highly over-leveraged. Any thought on that?
I think on a specific group, I would like to avoid on a forum like this. It is a recorded video. I would not like to make any comment on that. But I can tell you, even Reliance Group in 2020 and 2019 was extremely over-leveraged, and it had a major problem. But I think over the period of 2020 and 2021, the company managed to bring in around 2 lakh crore worth of equity into the company and brought the leverage substantially down. And I'm sure that companies like Adani have got huge assets on the ground, can do what I would say, can do deleveraging by sale of assets to global organizations. They have already done such sort of transaction, like they have done with Total, they have done something with some other companies. So I'm reasonably sure that they'll be able to sell some amount of the stake to global corporations and bring down the debt equity ratio by infusing equity. So that is my submission. I've been seeing a lot of memes doing around about Adani Green at around 2000% ratio, etc. But I think if we know so much, then I think Gautam Adani knows more than us. Am I right? So I'm reasonably confident that able to infuse equity to ensure that those ratios are brought down to the level where it doesn't become a credit risk for the bankers and for the bondholders.
Rajiv Dubey has asked a question. He is saying, thank you for sharing these points with us. Would like to know some of the sources of getting this data point. Is there any website which compiles all the data pointers?
No, I think there is no standardized data available. Am I right? These are all how to assess business risk, etc. As to, say, for example, I was doing M&A transaction analysis. So at that point of time, I go to screener.com or I go to other websites and I collect data from each website and then collate it in Excel sheet, then slice and dice it to come into a conclusion. Am I right? It is more of a thesis paper, Amit. So it is something that you did, which I do on a daily basis sitting on the office desk. So it is more of a exercise that we need to do. It's like solving a math problem. There is no standard, what I would say, a website where you can go and dug it. You have to go to various websites, various company sites, take out the information, dump the data, and then convert it into a book. Because it's an exercise in peer review and benchmarking.
Dinesh sir is asking, can you please name the book you referred earlier? Can you rename it?
That is very. I know Dinesh Kotechaji personally, and
there are others who also ask the same question.
Yeah. I see. You can write it down. It is Nicholas Nissim Talib. The book's name is Black Swan: and fooled by randomness. I think these two books actually talk about the myriad of risks and the psychology of how risk emanate from human behavior.
Manish Nath has also recommended Anti-Fragile.
Yes. That book is also equally good.
Thanks, Ravi.
I would like to supplement a few thoughts. It's interesting. Many participants, in fact, who are quite knowledgeable and working at senior level in their own fields, they had talked about large industrial groups. We keep on looking at top businesses globally, large caps, mid caps, small caps. Now there is a talk since actually last year and this year about a race, Ambani's and Adani's. And one needs to do deep dive into it. The critical factors which come in, this is open for all stakeholders because there could be a debate also. In fact, it's already going on. Leverage in Adani group companies. There are about 7 large listed companies. Some number is going on in circulation about 19 lakh crores in terms of rupees and market cap. And if you add the 2 recent companies taken over for which open offer is in process, ACC and Ambuja, Wholesome needed money. And of course, if you add that, it is over 21 lakh crores. Of course, last night there is a fall in global markets over 1,000 points on Dow. So next week would be having its own dynamics. But leverage of how much? About between 2 and 3 lakh crores. We need to look at the cost of capital. Now, incidentally, the business group we talked about, Adani's, has an advantage of among the lowest cost of capital. They have access to funds globally, and they have access to funds here from multiple segments, whether it is debt and also in various forms, banks. Adani somehow is a favored lender. It became a favored lender, but with its high ratings, it is able to get debt at a very low cost. Now, what does it do with debt? They are known actually as of now as takeover tycoons. Growth has taken place of businesses with high potential. Some have been managed well, greatly, like ACC and Ambuja. There were some challenges and issues, particularly in the power sector, infrastructure sector. So it was assets were available at throwaway price, and if you get debt at a low cost, globally the name of the business is to grow through takeovers and through leverage. There are leverage buyouts also. So we had to look at the strategy of Adani Group. Is it right? And how they are doing it? Are they doing the right things at the right cost, getting the best returns? And of course, when we talked about risk management, we talked about operating cash flows. If they are doing it right, they have grown from leaps and bounds, where they were 20 years ago, where they were 10 years ago, and where they were 3 years ago before, in fact, where they were before in the last government, before the current government came, and where they were before pandemic, and where they are now. If industrial groups like them are able to leverage successfully and optimize their cost and get the good returns, manage cash flows, it's a matter of pride for India. India growth story. They are today in the top 10 in the world as far as the promoter is concerned. In fact, Mr. Gautam Adani mentioned just a few days back, I think it was his birthday, when he talked about contributing 60,000 crores to CSR, right?
Yes.
1,000 for every year. Hope it will grow. Hope it will be done in a transparent way. And then the race which people talk about Ambani's. When we look at Reliance, incidentally, it's a consolidated focus on one company, and they have over 500 subsidiaries and associates. I would look at just share a few numbers so there is proper perspective. We talked about operating cash flows. Now, the latest 485-page report, integrated annual report of Reliance Industries, they talk about on a standalone basis in FY21, it was minus 612 crores net cash flow, while there was a profit of 31,944 crores, which went up to 39,084 crores on a standalone basis in FY22. But the operating cash flow went up significantly from minus 612 crores. They were in investment phase, and now standalone net operating cash flow 67,491 crores. This is the type of power of cash flow. And we look at consolidated numbers, which are there in page number 396 of the integrated annual report. We talk about cash flows which have gone up from 26,958 crores in FY21 to 1,10,654 crores in FY22. This talks about the power of operating cash flows. Just imagine the kind of companies they can take over with this operating cash flow without incurring much debt. Today, they have got over 1,25,000 crores in liquid assets in mutual funds, banks, etc.
Completely agree.
So, and of course, they have access to capital as lowest cost domestically and internationally. And it's a race. But today, the numbers show Reliance is far behind Adani. It has happened in FY22 itself. So it's hats off to Adani's, but don't underestimate the Ambani's. They are watching the numbers, and they are known for watching the numbers, if not every day, practically every second of the market. They have the eye on the ball, and they also understand leverage.
Of course.
Last few years, they were talking about net debt-free. Now, with clean energy, green energy, hydrogen, and so much on the horizon, it's all about going up the ranks globally.
I think
for that, one needs to take debt. Fine, do it. At what cost? But you have to manage the debt. How they manage the debt is very important. And managing in uncertainty times, particularly in these times, when there are so many changes globally overnight on the interest rate regimes, on the regulatory fund, and on the regulatory risk we talked about. We know what happened last week. There was a takeover. Some say it's a hostile takeover. Some say it's a blessings of the government of a business group taking over, trying to take over a media, topmost respected media channel for news. So this shows the power of the India growth story. Media sector, entertainment sector, telecom sector, 5G is coming. And if they are doing it with leverage, let them do it. But the returns are the key things. And Dr. Amit, it is really wonderful. You have talked about the techniques and tools of understanding debt, understanding bankruptcies, badly managed business, or inappropriate misc of debt, and inability to meet the covenants. These we can look at and predict it through such very well-known models like Z-score, and there are many, many more models. So lots of things in the corporate world. There's a lot of excitement. There is a lot of professionalism, talent, tools, and practical issues we look at. If there is any other issue also from any of the participants, panelists, it's lovely discussing them. And it's a part of a series. We'll be having it regularly, and nothing better to start with than Gita Gyan. Mr. Kannan, you are there with us?
Yeah, I am there. Yeah.
Yeah, some thoughts from you on takeovers, growth, and what's happening globally, and particularly some of the corporates we talked about, strategies. And of course, then we look at deeper insights from you on the financial sector, banks who are actually lending to such groups.
Yeah. So one is this takeover, especially after COVID. What has happened? We all know that in a boom period, companies which are doing extremely well, which has average performance, which are not efficient. All three types of companies, they do very well in a booming economy. So that is a natural. So if you look at the history, that is how it will look like. And whenever the economy starts showing signs of decline, economy is not doing well, then that is where you will be able to differentiate between the men and boys. So especially the companies which are not efficient, which are not fit, which are not taking enough measures, these companies started doing very badly. I'm happy that you are discussing about that score. I'm conducting a course in NMIMS for last 12 years on turnaround management. This Z score is mainly, we use it to predict the sickness. I believe in the last 2-3 years, our banks also started looking at Z scores of companies before they start lending. Whether it will, company will be bankrupt or something. But of course, it will predict only 90-95% of the time whether the company will go sick. So what we found after COVID, many companies which are not efficient. We all know, even in India, for example, the top companies, actually they were able to go and improve performance. Despite their turnover not going up, they are able to go and increase the profit. They are able to reduce debt. There was a long discussion on debt. Debt is always a time bomb in a company or in an economy. Whenever there is a high debt, that is going to have an impact. High debt is related to high risk. Since we are talking about risk management, whenever you have high debt, it is related to high risk. So if you talk about takeovers, especially after the COVID, what we find that in many cases where the inefficient companies which are not able to continue their operations, they are being sold to large companies in a field, in a sector. That is what was happening. This we have seen across the world. In India also, we saw large companies taking over companies, not because of COVID alone. Like you mentioned, Adani Group, they drawn up a big growth plan. Of course, most of them are focused on infrastructure, essentials, except that Adani Wilmar, which focuses on consumer, and of course now green energy and all will come. So they are also going and buying companies. So the trend what we see after COVID is many of these inefficient enterprises are being taken over by efficient enterprises. That's what is happening. Then we are discussing about risk management. We are mainly discussing now this risk management. Even SEBI has recognized that it has to be on the agenda of boards. So now, in fact, in the last 4 or 5 years, they started advising companies to form risk management committees. They want companies to appoint chief risk officers. They want companies to identify each risk. In fact, there's something called risk register, which companies have to prepare on probability of each risk happening and what is the likely impact if that risk is going to happen. One of the tools we use in management is, of course, the risk. It was very well explained by Mr. Ravi. The risk mainly comes from, one is internal operations, and if you look at from external, one is government regulation. government regulation has become a big risk today. So not only in India, across the world. So what they are going to announce next for a sector, it's a big, we don't know. Then consumer behavior. How consumers are behaving. In fact, we call societal trends and all that. So that can, in fact, pose a big threat. We have seen in the case of Nokia phone, consumer, even though the product was good, they stopped buying a Nokia phone. Kodak camera. So these are all consumer behavior. Third, competition. We have very high competition, at least 20 sectors in India. You take banking, insurance. Name, there are 20 sectors where there is hyper competition. So whenever there is hyper competition, there is a risk of not making profit. Yeah, especially if you are not the most efficient company, you will find it very, very difficult to survive. So then, of course, economy. I'm very happy that I was reading some reports about the latest outlook for India. They are saying that this year our GVA has already grown by 14 or 14.5%. This year, nominal growth includes inflation also. India will grow by 15%. I'll come to the banking sector. The banking sector is a good reflection of what is happening in the economy and what is going to happen in the economy. So the risk management today has become the main agenda for the board. So boards have started monitoring not only risk management, also what is called a strategy. Now, SEBI has started mandating that boards, not all companies, they have specified the turnover, capital and all that. So those companies, the board has to approve the strategy. So slowly what is happening? The activities which are part of management, not part of board supervision, they are all becoming now part of board supervision. Let us see cyber security. So like that, slowly everything is coming into cyber security is the one of the major risks which people say that difficult to predict, and also it's very costly to manage. Cyber security. So this is what, and of course, one of the methods by which companies can do a good analysis is something called 5 forces model, where now you don't just look at what you are doing. As a company, you have to start looking at what is your supplier doing. Is your supplier healthy? What is your dealer doing, dealer or customer? Is the dealer healthy? We know that during COVID, many of the automobile dealerships were closed. So you look at the dealer, then you look at the bargaining power of a supplier and bargaining power of a buyer. So, you know, large companies, you will not believe, they are able to extract a discount of 66.7% on their purchases compared to their competition. That is where they are able to derive competitive advantage. People always think that how this company is able to offer such a low price, where they are able to get the raw material cheaper by 2/3. So that is the buyer power. Supplier power, we know there are only 3-4 companies in the world manufacture chips. So whatever price they dictate, we have to pay. Oil, only few companies producing oil. Whatever price they want, we have to pay. This is a buyer power. So whenever you do risk analysis, then of course substitutes. What is happening today? Today I was trying from the morning to log in through my computer. It was not working. In fact, I wanted to make a presentation, but I could not make it. Then now I am talking through the phone. Phone has emerged as a substitute for so many products, starting from camera. The advertisement itself says it's a camera. Then you have you can make a PDF. You can scan. 50 activities can be done by phone. And people are not believing that this screens, cinema screens, they'll start reducing. We are seeing the trend now. People have started watching movies on the phone at home. So all these risks you have to measure. And of course, as I told you, you have to prepare a whole list at the beginning of the year. Like Mr. Ravi said, internal and external. And you have to name, risk has got both sides. You remember, it can result in a higher profit. It can result in a lower profit. Risk has got two dimensions. It's not just a risk means minus. Risk can also result in company gaining. So that is as far as the risk is concerned. Then I'll come to banking. I was just looking at the numbers. You know, before that 2017, I think 2017, when Dr. Raghuram Rajan enforced all the banks to report all their NPAs in the books of accounts. Of course, our NPA levels are very low, and banks are growing at an average of 10 to 15-16% per annum. Once we forced banks to report all NPAs, which were very high, then one bank started reducing the amount of credit they give. And second, it has affected the entire banking system. But in the last 2 years, I was just looking at the statistics. Most of the public sector banks has already provided for 80 to 90% of NPAs they reported. So only 5 or 10% are there. And you all know that the banks like HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank and all, they never lent money to sensitive sectors. So they are all protected. So when I look at the numbers, the banks are growing at only 6-7% after that fiasco. But in the month of July, I find bank credit has started going up by 16%. And what is driving? And of course, we are reading in the papers that people are, they started taking money, loan for buying their homes. Actually, what has happened after the fiasco? All banks, including public sector banks, they started focusing on consumer finance. So the consumer finance, suddenly you will not find 10,000 crore, 20,000 crore going as NPA, like in the case of large corporates. So since everybody started focusing on this consumer finance, one is this consumer, we find that people have started borrowing, that's one. Second is slowly MSMEs are coming back to normal. And apart from that, we know that from time to time, the government has created a scheme for additional lending to MSMEs. So from time to time, they announce 25,000 crore increase, 50,000 crore increase under the scheme. So that is also going to MSMEs. And slowly what we are seeing, even sectors which are mostly affected during the COVID. That is travel, accommodation, and tourism. They started reviving. In fact, if you call up 5-star hotels, now you find that most of the time they are almost full. People started traveling. And you know that in the last month, the airfares have started going up and people started traveling again. So all these are good indicators. And what we found at the end of March, actually the capital adequacy ratio of banks, all the banks, they need not keep more than 10% as per the statute. But we found that it is more than 16%, which means they are very, very comfortable in terms of capitalization. That was very good. Then NPA numbers, if you look at, since most of the banks have already provided for the old NPAs, now it has come down to close to 5%, 4.5%. It's at a very reasonable level. Now banks have started getting the confidence that yes, they can start lending. And apart from that, finance minister and RBI, they also advise banks, you have to start lending to, you have to increase the lending. That is the only way the economy will revive. So we find that automobile sector, we see this year they will do well. Thanks to COVID, pharma sector in India, they are doing well, but there are contrary reports regarding IT sector. On one side, they are saying it will be good. On the other side, they are saying that there are pressures. But if you look at overall, the indications from banking that credit growth is 16%. I'll just read it out for you. FY23 started on good note on account of improved levels of economic activity. One more good thing is that government is able to collect a lot of tax. Last 2 years, they collected a lot of tax, which they may not have expected. And this year also, so far, the tax collection was very good. So GST collection is good. E-way bill registration is good. And bank credit continued to grow at 14.5%. It's a very healthy growth. And last year it was growing at only 6%. Credit outstanding to lenders, to borrowers, the banks have lent so far 122 lakh crores. Yeah, this is 15 lakh crores higher than last year. And retail credit growth was driven by improvement in economic activities in the job market. Small ticket loans, we saw last month in the newspapers, they are the highest sales through credit card in the history of India. So people have started spending money through credit card in a big way. So last month was the highest. Credit card receivables, housing, vehicle and consumer loans continue to account. Then MSME segment, as I was telling you, one is that the government itself is increasing the borrowing limit for MSMEs under that scheme which they brought after the crisis. And one more thing is that you remember, interest rates going up is good for banks. If they are at a low rate, of course, still on fixed deposits, we don't get high rates. But since Reserve Bank has increased repo rate several times, that was a good lead indicator for banks to go and increase their interest rates.
That's really wonderful news. Interest rates going up is good for banks. Credit growth is back in the system. We are talking about system credit growth rates, 14.5%, as the RBI governor recently said a few days back. and some banks growing at 16%, 20%. In fact, some of the NBFCs growing at 40%. Some of them have over 100% YOY growth. We welcome Mr. Pankaj from Chennai. Pankaj, you are there with us?
Yes, sir.
Your video is on.
I'm there with you.
Yeah, Pankaj, welcome, and it was
And
good to
sincere apology to all for being late, because
It's
I was in the AGM of Tejo Engineering and I was representing the investor. So I was
okay.
the main speaker. That's why I joined late. I'm
That's
really sorry.
wonderful. You are traveling and doing deep dives across the country. What's happening on the ground? You can share with us how, what, and how the AGM went. How many people physically attended the AGM? How many attended online? And your thoughts on what Mr. Kannan said. The credit growth is back. Rising interest rates are good. And thoughts on some of the sectors you are looking at closely. Currently, there are lots of sectors. You are known as always doing deep dive in the defense sector through your tweets.
Thank you. So let me share my takeaway from the Tejo's AGM. So around 42 or 43% were physically present, and online I think 2 or 3 people were there. So just to come for the how the mining sector is going shaping up post this new geopolitical
Pankaj, first
equation.
your thoughts on the banking sector and the credit cycle. Mr. Kannan shared his thoughts.
So
Yes.
So let me summarize that. So in my view, if you will ask, if you will see past 6-7 year, bank were very reluctant to lend. Plus, every corporate was on the deleveraging side. Right now, suddenly, if you will see the again, I am coming back to that. The new geopolitical equation has forced the world to look for the second option in manufacturing. They can't dependent on China anymore for 100% rely on Chinese production. So a lot of, you will see a lot of manufacturing is going to happen in India in next 10 years. And that will spur the credit cycle look like anything. I talked to many of the management, everybody is gearing up for the capex cycle. But we have to keep in the mind, they are not going to take the loan recklessly except Adani's.
That's good. I'll just share the Mr. Pankaj has been a banker, SBI, Axis Bank, and Mr. Kannan has IIM Ahmedabad and has been a banker earlier with ICICI over a decade ago, and rich experience with topmost global business groups, looking at performances of their companies at the highest level, including a top private sector bank, IndusInd Bank, which he has been monitoring on a regular basis. And right. Dr. Amit Jain was with CRISIL, looking at so many numbers and performances.
I had interacted Amit so many times, and luckily once we face to face at Mathiran also at the railway station.
Wonderful. And now Pankaj, tell us what brought you from banking to looking at companies closely, particularly the defense and other sectors.
So let me talk about the defense first, since you are categorically asked. So generally I look at across the sector. You can talk pharma, banking, infra, capital goods, textile, IT, everything. But right now, I think that defense is going to be the sector for at least 25 years. When I tell 25 years, that is at least, because if you see the geopolitical tension after Second World War is at its peak. And if you go 6-7 years back, most of the country, or 3 years back, most of the country were not concerned about their defense spending, especially Europe, like Germany, France, UK, even Japan, Taiwan, Australia, India. They were not so concerned about their defense spending 3 to 4 years back. Suddenly, the Russian-Ukraine war has forced them to think that how to save their borders. And if you will go and last 7, 8 months, if you give see the announcements, France has doubled their defense budget. Germany has put for $200 billion for defense. Japan defense budget has gone 2x. Taiwan is increasing their defense production like anything. China is getting unnecessarily hyper towards India and Taiwan. So their defense production is also on the rise. Russia's inventory has depleted like anything. US is enjoying and they are also increasing their defense production. So if you will see, and if you will see the India's position, it is just like Israel. We have all the round enemies and we don't have any other option to strengthen our defense. And the first time in the history of defense, Indianization has been in too much focus. And what I learned that defense, any industry, when it has to evolve, it has to be a great ecosystem. But unfortunately, in India, in last 17 years, no ecosystem has been created. Only the select PSU and ordnance factories were forced to for the defense production. No innovation has been done. There were no such policy. So now since I started tracking, it is almost 2.5 years back. And I was very clear that this is going for a big value creator. The reason being, any people you talk, they are skeptical about defense. इसमें कुछ होता नहीं है. यहाँ सरकार का चलता है, कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. So when so much pessimism in the sector, the biggest bull run will always born out of it, and it is happening now. Okay, you see the defense ordnance board has been corporatized. The government is changing their policy. So anybody now, if you will see very soon, the announcement will come. Whatever R&D you doing, you are developing something, you will be compensated for. Earlier, you do R&D, you develop the product, but there is no guarantee of takeoff. So everything is coming now. So you will see that many startups, many intelligent brands, many beautiful companies are going to come with a lot of innovative solutions. Like you see, India is going to be the drone production hub for the world. Very soon you will hear that. The same way.
Pankaj, I'll just share with you. Pankaj, yesterday, looking at the market, we saw some of the defense stocks. Mazgaon dock stock went up over 10%, 11%. And
so I will tell you, sir. I will tell you, sir. This is just
also went up. Another thing in the airspace, HAL stock has gone up over 100% over the last year. There was an IPO, then it gave small pop-up, and then it went around that price. Now HAL is being recognized as a top global company, and where multiple countries are wanting technology from HAL, and it is doing really wonderful in spite of being what people say a Sarkari company. And
sir, I will tell you, sir, 1 minute, yeah. 1 minute. Let me stop you here. So I will summarize. You ask about Mazgaon dock and all. So I will tell you one thing. This is just a tip of iceberg. Whether it is a HAL, BDL, Mazgaon dock, or GSRE, or Cochin shipyard, or for that sake, let us say
Bharat Forge is doing
Bharat Forge. I will not count that is a pure defense. The reason being, they have the forging and industrial and auto side is a very big. L&T, again, the other business are big. So you will not get the exact defense flavor out of that. If they demerge something like Kalyani Defense or something, then you will have some additional things. Anyway, going further, like Avantal, Sika Interplant, high energy battery, HBL power, and whether I should mention or not, but I own 2% in the company called PTC Industry. So it might be biased. So I am giving my disclaimer. So, but still, if coming back to that, it is a tip of iceberg. And when you talk, I had told on record 2 years back that HAL is going for the aerospace company for the third world. Again, I'm repeating, HAL is going for the aerospace company for the third world. Exactly, you told that. And trust me, HAL market cap will go well beyond this 75,000 crore. Maybe 5 lakh crore, maybe 10 lakh crore. I don't know the number because it is evolving. So coming back to that the ecosystem, now the ecosystem is being built. If we will go, we have to deep down because a lot of either wrong knowledge or less knowledge about the defense among the market participant. Okay, I will tell you one interesting thing. Just you note it down. If you will see the auto sector, the OEM like Maruti, Toyota, Honda, Hero Honda, or Honda motorcycle, their margin in excess of 20-25% at EBITDA level, or Mahindra and Mahindra or Tata. If you will go to the ancillary level who make component, their margin is hardly 8 to 10% at EBITDA level. But in defense, if you will see, the equation is exactly opposite. The platform company like Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Dassault, they make 8 to 10% at EBITDA level. Then subsystem company like Safran, MTU Aero, then let us say Rolls-Royce, General Electric, then these companies EBITDA in the range of 12 to 14%. And if you go down, component company like Precision Castparts Corporation and others, they enjoy EBITDA like 30%. Okay, just I want to mention something here. So the Safran is a third largest aerospace company across globe, and it has got almost 13,000 vendors to supply different spare parts and component. Okay, so when we talk about defense ecosystem, we get very excited about MTAR, Paras Defense. Then somebody was quoting Azad Engineering. So if you will go deep down, then you will see these companies are not doing any production. They are into services. They do the CNC machining and all, and they enjoy around 40% EBITDA. Okay, on the capex of, let us say, 1,000 crore, then they will make the top line of 1,200 crore. Right. So what I mean to say, the component manufacturing company across globe is just 6 or 7. Just 6 or 7. Safran is having the vendor of 13,000 vendors, but the component supplier is 6 or 7. That's all. So we should find out some component manufacturing company, and there is the best wealth creation proportion lies. So to summarize this, any defense company you take, you will make tons of money, no question on that. To give your answer, Majgaon Dock is the main submarine and submarine builder. So I think it can be a multiple X in next 5-10 years. And
that's really good detailed insights. We'll have more from you over the sessions ahead. And this all comes with a disclaimer. We talk about companies from point of view of understanding them, the business,
exactly,
and also the opportunities. And it's all comes with a disclaimer. Please look at the companies yourself and consult your own advisor before doing any transaction. Mr. Kannan? You're there with us?
Shall I tell about mining? One very interesting point I came to know today. So let the group come to know about that. So in mining, if you will see the mining ancillary companies, Tejo is a mining ancillary company. So earlier there a company like Metso and Atlas Copco. These are also in the mining ancillary businesses. So one very interesting thing has happened, that this new geopolitical equation, after getting sanction on Russia, all these European giants cannot supply any spare and services to the Russia. So Russia has a huge demand is coming from Russia. So we have to look at the company who can supply these services and spare parts to Russia. This is going to be a very big opportunity because Russia has got a big mining operation. Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Manoj, you were saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, Mr. Pankaj is talking about mining, and after he finished on mining, we wanted your views also on the defense sector. We have been talking about in the past. Now there are lots of developments, but I think let Pankaj finish on mining, then you can give your thoughts both on defense and mining also.
So in India also, a lot of mining activity is catching up, especially in the coal side, limestone side, and iron ore side. If you will see 2 days back, the Supreme Court has also lifted ban from the mining or mining in this iron ore mining in the Karnataka. So the prospect for the mining company is rising like anything. In my view, there are two sectors which will be in sweet spot. One is defense, second is mining on this side. And banking, of course, is coming out of set. So we can make a lot of wealth in banking also, but we have choose our right partner.
That's really wonderful. Yeah, Mr. Kannan.
Yeah, defense. In fact, I had a chance to give a training to some of the 2-3 leading defense companies in India also. 1-day training on how to export from India to other countries in the world. So this has happened even 4 years ago. So one of the things I found before engaging with these companies, we were very good in software, but many of the components we were getting it from abroad. One good thing is that in the last 2-3 years, I think the agreement you have signed up with countries like US and USSR, we are getting access to the technologies which were refused to be given to us. So they are considered to be strategic technologies, and these countries they didn't want to share with India. So now under the umbrella of Atmanirbhar Bharat, as well as this scheme for 14 sectors, good thing is that now most of the countries are looking at like earlier speaker was saying, they are looking at India as a China plus one strategy. Of course, China plus one, Vietnam has emerged as China plus one, but considering a very large domestic market in India, most of the large companies are interested in India, where most of the production can be marketed in India only. So defense, of course, in the last 2-3 years, government has relaxed many policies. They allowed private sector to enter new areas. They allowed a higher level of equity capital to private companies. And when I was doing this training 4 years ago, there are only 200 or 300 major suppliers to these companies, but now I'm sure the supplier base must have gone above 1,000 to supply to these companies. So some of the latest technologies which are required for manufacturing defense equipments, I think Indian companies are getting it either through a joint venture route or through licensing route, and they are able to start producing these products in India. So apart from just being self-reliant in defense, government also has articulated its vision that we have to become a very large exporter of defense equipment in the world. Okay, the number one country in the world for defense is more than $40 billion is being spent on defense. And of course, they are the largest supplier in the world for defense equipment. We have expressed our opinion, our interest. We have to our interest. Mining, as it was mentioned earlier, whole India, they have set a target. Right now, I think 70 billion. So they want to increase it to 1 billion ton of coal. They want to increase output by 50%. Importing more than 200 million tons of coal every year from abroad. Start having a local coal, then the requirement of imports will be mining company in the world. They have entered India and they are looking at opportunities. Iron ore, as you are aware, we are one of the largest producers and exporters in the world. In fact, China is one of the largest buyers of iron ore. And mining is a very, very attractive industry where gross margins used to be 90%. But after that, government brought in rules like royalty, etc., etc. But still, if you look at mining industry, the gross margin levels may be more than 50%, and it will be very attractive. But only one thing which we find, that many of these mines which are operating, they are illegal. Well, it's a very highly profitable industry generating cash. And if all that comes as a part of formal sector, we will find that the contribution of mining to GDP in India will certainly increase. So now we are thinking of using very advanced equipments for mining, where you can excavate higher levels of output. You can have higher levels of output, and of course, Coal India is at the forefront in terms of increasing its output. And like it was mentioned, Karnataka companies have invested. I think JSW Steel itself invested 40,000 crores for iron ore, if I'm not mistaken. Then recently they opened up. In between there was a ban for mining, so they opened up, and all that is going to contribute to higher GDP in India. And one thing, mining companies are really attractive for investment, where their margins are very high. And defense, as it was mentioned, generally defense, whatever products you produce for defense, whether you are a supplier or whether you are a full product integrator, the margin levels are really very high. So these two sectors, like it was mentioned, they can contribute to incremental market capitalization in India as well as incremental GDP. This is my view.
These are wonderful insights. In mining, we have an example. There was a company called Sisa Goa Mining. And it was also in the news for the price rise due to a certain operator at that point of time. That was over a couple of decades. Today, ultimately, we saw emergence of a large group, not only in India, but globally, Vedant. This shows the potential of mining, the kind of cash flows which can come, and what cycles and super cycles can do to the company. Today we have the same company looking at buying stakes of large PSUs and generating huge cash flows. They don't know what to do, and they are giving huge dividends. And going from sector to sector, mining from one sector to another, iron ore, copper, then they go into oil, then they'll go into zinc, They look at so many sectors, not only in India, but globally, and looking at global listings also. So wonderful. In fact,
One thing,
we'll keep on
one
doing
thing,
the sector and sector. Yeah, but we'll be brief, and Dr. Amit Jain is
yeah, yeah.
waiting to close.
Just last
Yeah.
point. Just last point. Since you had raised, I forgot to mention that all the Sarkari companies are making the defense products. So if you see globally also, it is a very wrong to look at that other country private companies are doing. The private companies are just like contractor, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Safran, Griffins, or Rolls Royce, Airbus. They can't sell any product without government permission. So please do not take that ki HL is a Sarkari company. Defense will always remain in the clutches of government. Take out anywhere in the world. Companies might be producing many products, but they are not free to sell. They are bound by the government policies only. Only government clearance they can sell, sir. So don't take it wrong that BDL is a government company, so they will not make money. Even the private company like L&T or Bharat Forge, is Bharat Forge allowed to sell their artillery, that howitzer gun to any country? The answer is no. So let us be mindful while investing. Defense will always will remain in the control of government, because government is the biggest spender, and defense is not a sector. It is a quasi country, sir. It is a quasi country. Defense budget and the general budget, if you classify, then the defense budget and defense uh, is the biggest landholder also. They uses ration, they uses clothes, they uses boots, they uses toothpaste, they uses guns, everything. So here we are talking about the arms and ammunition. So please be mindful while investing in this company, that keep in the mind, whatever country you take, defense will always in the hand of government. Producer may be anyone, but the actual licensing or permission with in the hand of government.
Time to close the wind up the sessions. And I would just mention, once a company gets listed, it belongs to all stakeholders. And now it's a question about collaboration and agreements. And not only one country, multiple countries, as allowed by all the stakeholders together. I would like to acknowledge also Mr. Vijay Saraf is here. If you would like to speak, Mr. Prakash Bhatia also, couple of veterans and in their own fields. And then Dr. Amit Jain. Yeah, Mr. Prakash, I would just mention Prakash Bhatia has been a banker, rich experience now with the foreign bank in corporate banking. Some thoughts from you, and Vijay Saraf, it's your option. I hope you are doing well. And Dr. Amit Jain.
Hello everyone. So today's session was very good. I joined a little late, but I just want to say today, basically, we'd like to give the Shraddhanjali to our beloved friend, founder Ajay ji. And this is today our group is incomplete, I can say, without him. And I always remember he was always a founding, you can say, smile, $1 million smile he used to give, and he has a knowledge of everything in detail. So just today, like, it was a day, we can say this session is entirely for tribute to him, and whatever knowledge has been shared by him to our group, whatever contribution he has given, that is cannot be, we cannot forget to remember that. This is what I want to say. And yes, we have to carry the legacy, and we all have to, the real Shraddhanjali to him will be that we have to carry this torch ahead, and we have to keep our group alive and more knowledgeable. The challenge is to give more knowledge. Like today, we have learned a lot of new things, extraordinary new things we should know and distribute to the others. Like today, defense sector, like for example, I don't want to go into very much detail, but defense sector is something new sector. we learn a lot of things from the new thing. So that's it. I just say, if Manoj bhai, we can, if you can permit me, we can have just 20-second Maun Vrat for him, if you can permit. Manoj bhai, can we do that? Half a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just say Om, and I will just say Om 11 times, and that will be Shraddhanjali. Please request everybody to just, by the time I chant Om 11 times, please keep your mobile on a mute. Oh. 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 Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Over to Manoj bhai.
Dr. Amit.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks, Pankaj for a very good, insightful discussion on the defense sector and other sectors which you discussed. Just to brief, Pankaj is a very old friend and he's a very renowned investor. And he historically is one of the has founded a few of many multi-baggers as per my understanding and as per what I have tracked for last 10 years. And what he says it should be actually be should be considered seriously.
It is your respect and gratitude, Amit bhai.
Just to brief about today's discussion, Mantri ji covered Gita in the current environment and management lesson very well, and it is his topic which is closer to his heart, so he has conveyed the topic very well. Ravi gave a very insightful presentation on various risks, including the financial and management risk as a factor for investing. Just to summarize in one line, one important point which he highlighted is to keep a track of leverage as well as promoter pledge to have a better return on investments. Mr. Kannan gave a very good, insightful comments on various topics. We are very real thankful for him to give such a for giving his for all the discussion. And the last, Pankaj Prasoon sir, really helpful that you gave a time from your busy schedule today. We know that you are busy in a AGM and still you give such a insightful presentation on defense sector. So thanks and thanks. Yeah,
Amit, I will be happy to coordinate and keep a session on defense sector, because I understand in the market participant has very less knowledge about this, how the ecosystem works, how the component is being made, what are the materials are required, whether it is available in the India or not, how difficult these technologies are. So try to keep one session, and if it is a physical session, then it will be best.
Sure, sir. Thanks for your suggestion. We will definitely come back to you on this, and we are also happy that if you can present your view on this. And thanks for being a wonderful audience. It was a great pleasure that all the people who have attended. Thanks everybody, and we had a very good session.
Well done, Dr. Amit.
Thank you everybody. It's really I missed a lot of part, but next time I will not. But, thank you.
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
Just one question for regarding defense.
Yeah.
Everything. Somebody speaking. Some ladies is speaking.
तुम्ही घरी येऊन करून घ्यायला किती पैसे घेणार?
Can that person keep quiet? Mute their phone. Okay, what I'm trying to say.
तुम्ही कुठे राहता? वसईला राहता? कोण गावात? कोण राहता?